going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the evolution of Sports Talk Television. As I lose my train of thought as I try to intro the show, it's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about on a happy
Hump Day
edition. And how do we start off this show? As you know them, you love them, you got to have them. Three things: bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. On tonight's show, we'll have the legend himself, Mr. Leo Haggerty, former Coach Scout and now media member of Night Sports Productions and Amped Up Sports. We'll have his guest of Amped Up Sports, Ryan Neal, talking about what else. The Combine is coming up this week or is already here. And you've got quarterbacks in this 2024 class that I know some Bucs fans may want. Maybe a Michael Penix Jr. So we'll be talking draft tonight. And, of course, we'll be taking your questions as we always do here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television, as free agency is only a couple weeks away. You have a big day coming up next week on March 5th with the franchise tag. Will Antoine Winfield Jr. receive that? I got to tell you, though, man, I miss coming on Monday nights. I'm going to work on coming on Monday night to do a salute because it's my father's birthday. So I think I'll definitely come on Monday night. We'll talk some sports with you, as always, reminisce about the greatest caller in sports web history. And if you don't know the story about my father and basically being one of the creators of this show, along with Sean, the Sports Don, I will definitely tell you that on Monday night. And as always, we'll take your phone calls because I want to talk to you Bucs fans out there. Jason Light had some comments. We'll get to that press conference. 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. At 10:30, we will have former XPW announcer Mr. Mark Mancini talking about what else, Elimination Chamber, what happened with that. As Drew McIntyre looks like he's going to face who else but Seth Rollins. You have Cody calling out The Rock. Paul Heyman putting out a warning on Monday night. Yes, we do talk professional wrestling on this show. So we'll do that at 10:30. And as always, we'll just dive into sports, what's going on. Of course, the Rays doing with spring training. The Lightning lose last night. So if you want to talk about any of those teams, we can definitely do that. And as always, not only will we take your phone calls, but we'll read your text messages. I tell you what, let's go out to them really quick. And then we will get out to our guest in Leo Haggerty and Mr. Ryan Neal on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Mr. Ed Kirby, good evening. Master Peter, what's going on, buddy? Thanks a lot for tuning in.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate that. I don't know why my name isn't showing up. I guess it's on I Love St. Pete, as we're live on I Love St. Pete, Bucs Life, and, of course, my page right there. Let's go out to Roger Shue. Hurry up. Sting's last Dynamite is on. Sitton says, go Bucs. Absolutely go Bucs.
How about them Bucs, baby?
Let's go out to KR. Oh, Lord. Here we go with Roger. Yep, always. Like always. Evening, Peter and crew. Go Bucs. Go Bucs.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go out to KR again. Sports Track had some interesting projections of these quarterbacks and their contracts. I would say check it out. I would definitely do that. I think it was, Spotted Track. They had Baker at 4 years, $120 million. I'd rather have the best player available at 26, says KR. Did you hear Dave Canales about his obsession of establishing the run in Carolina? I laughed out loud. Ben Cornett says, good evening, sir. Good evening to you, Mr. Ben Cornett from Las Vegas. Thank you. Yikes on the Rays baseball stadium. What a mess. 2.4 million, or excuse me, not million. That would be fine. 2.4 billion with a B, billion dollars. I love a new stadium out there, but $2.4 billion. Don't you think the Rays should pay a little bit more than that? So we could definitely get into that subject. And Christopher Cole says, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Yeah, absolutely. And what's going on, Mike? Thanks a lot for tuning in. Let's go ahead and get out to my co-host, the legend himself. Here we go. Former Coach Scout and now media member of Night Sports Productions, Amped Up Sports, and we were together there on Sunday at USF, as, of course, USF took care of business over SMU. Let's go out to Mr. Leo Haggerty. Welcome to the Evolution, my friend. How you doing tonight?
You know what, Peter? I'm fine. But while we're on that subject of USF basketball,
yes,
my post today dealt strictly with this. Now, understand this. USF men, they're 21-5. Mm-hmm. They've won 13 in a row. That's the second longest winning streak in the country right now, behind St. Mary's of California. They've won 19 of their last 20. Here's the kicker. Their net ranking is still 84. You know what that says? If you don't win the tournament, you're not getting in. That's a travesty. If you're going to penalize this team for losing in November, you're an idiot. But then again, I think that's the first prerequisite of being on the NCAA football or the NCAA basketball committee is you got to be an idiot. And they are.
Well, there you go. And they were idiots. Both of them were idiots when it comes to the college football committee. And hopefully they make up for it, but it doesn't look like it. Hopefully USF takes care of business, but I feel like they should already be in that conversation. And you got to think about this. I mean, Coach Raheem had 3 returning starters, 3 returning players, and you're 21-5 leaders of the AAC conference. It's ridiculous. He should be not only coach of the year, what he's done with that team. It's just been amazing at the end of the day. Tell you what, let's get out to our other guest. You want to go ahead and introduce this man right here? Because you told me about him. And he said, look, he knows about the draft. He knows about the quarterbacks. And I'm like, tell me more, because I love the draft. This is what I do here on the Sports Web. So go ahead and introduce our next guest here on the Evolution.
The latest addition to Amped Up Sports, the media correspondent, Mr. Ryan Neal. And Peter, he is an aficionado of the NIL. Boy, I'll tell you what. How nice is that to have him on board? Ryan, welcome.
Yeah. What's going on, Ryan?
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be on here.
All right. So he started it off here. He talked you up with the NIL agreement. Go ahead and give me some information about this. What's going on with the NIL agreement? Do you feel like this is here to stay when it comes to college football? Nick Saban had some critical comments. You have NCAA 24 coming out, giving $600 to college football players, some guys opting in, some guys opting out. So talk about that NIL agreement first and foremost, and we get into the draft. Welcome to the Evolution.
Thank you for having me again. And I just got to say one thing. I played NCAA 14, the game that came out, the college football game that came out 12 years ago.
Yes.
To say that I waited 12 years just for them to receive $600 payments I got to say, it's kind of a shame. But with NIL, one thing that's going on is it's a cluster. You know what? Every state is different right now, and Florida just passed in February the Florida Bill 7B, which was supposed to help remediate the issues. Like, I don't know if people heard what happened with Jaden Rashad at Florida, where it was a bidding war for him. Miami bid like $8 million for him. A Florida booster on his own accord came out and offered him nearly $14 million to go to school. He signs, and there's no such thing as a contract with these players. They get on campus. He says, "Where's the money?" And Florida's like, "What money? We don't have to give you anything." And that's why he's at Arizona State now. So there needs to be more legislation, not just with the NCAA, which seems to act like their hands are tied. And so state senates are going off with everything, and Supreme Court's kind of quiet about it in Congress.
I love him already because he's already talking legal terms here when it comes to the state of Florida. Let me ask you this. Let's get off the subject. Let's stay on college football. What did you think about the Florida State debacle? And are they looking to get some, because they beat LSU. You got an LSU shirt on. They did beat, the eventual Heisman Trophy winning quarterback there, and basically got no respect. Alabama got in, Texas got in, and consequently, both of those teams getting in, they lost. So did Florida State, in your opinion, get screwed? And do they have some likelihood, if you will here, Ryan, to get some money from the NCAA because of it?
Well, one thing is, as an LSU fan, I was happy to be seeing them in the bubble, not going to lie. But watching 2 years in a row, I went to New Orleans, watched that missed extra point, went to Orlando, and got heckled at by all the Florida State fans. So it was happy to see them go 13-0 and have nothing to come from it of the season. But lastly, real the objective opinion of it is they got screwed. But the college football playoff committee followed the rules and, like, you know, the eye test. That's what they looked at. And when Florida State goes up against Louisville in the ACC championship and they win, I think it was 13-6, 13-7. That looks pretty bad. And Louisville's a good team, but they're not supposed to be on par with a Florida State or something like that. So I could understand why the committee held them out because of Jordan Travis. And then to answer the question about this whole lawsuit thing going on, I think it's just Florida State fans being a little upset. I think that's the main thing about it. They can't get over it, and I think that they're going to see a decline next year. And because of that, I think they're kind of like, this was our year, and it was all the way up until that South Alabama game or wherever Jordan Travis got hurt.
Well, listen.
You know what, Peter? Real quick before you go on, Ryan,
Yes.
I want to jump in and ask you a question.
Go ahead.
NIL, do they need to put a cap on that? Because look at what Colorado did. They brought in almost the whole football team. Florida State brought in 21 guys. Does the NCAA, well, again, asking the NCAA to do anything is a catastrophe. But should they have to cap it, like, say, 5 players, 8 players, whatever? That's all you can bring in the NIL. That's all you can bring in the portal, because it's getting to be, as Coach Kelly from LSU said, it's play for pay.
It is. And so, like, I don't know if you heard, but in I think it's Rhode Island or Delaware just tried to pass a law that made it to where they're employees now. So if that happens, then the universities have to pay, and doesn't even have to be NIL. So it's all up to the state. It's a cluster, you know what, as I said before. Like Texas A&M, they had a collective called The Fund when it first got started, and fans, alumni, boosters were able to go donate to it. And they eventually changed the name out of criticism to the 12th Man, which I think is a better name. But it's The Fund. I think it encompasses the entire NIL world, because we're not out here trying to make betterment for the players. We're trying to get them on campus to get them to play football. That's in essence what NIL has become. And the Big Ten and SEC have apparently been trying to meet to make their own rules about it. And that could be a big thing. I don't know if anything came from their meeting, but it could have. And we'll see what happens, because I'm looking forward to that.
We'll definitely see what happens. And, of course, we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on this show. Don't know how versed you are with them. I know you're versed in NIL. I know you're versed with the quarterback situation. But speaking of the quarterback situation, when it has to do with Baker Mayfield, what are your thoughts on, first, his season overall here, Ryan, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? A total of 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Of course, former number 1 overall pick in 2018. And now looking for a contract extension. What do you think of the Mayfield situation with the Bucs?
Well, first off, who dat? And second off, I
you're really what?
there, but LSU, I got to be Saints. But we were the this year, and I got to say, love Baker Mayfield in college, and to really see them step at the helm at Tampa Bay and kick some butt, I was impressed. And even, my girlfriend's family is a big Bucs fan. I watched the game at the Lions game, and everyone was really upset. I'm like, the Lions, this is the first time the Lions have won like anything in a while. Be happy. We weren't even supposed to make it to the playoffs. Playoffs. Yeah. And so, it's a great year. I think he was the reason for that, and having Mike Evans on that outside helped him dramatically.
Well, it definitely helped him dramatically, and that's the other question mark with Mike Evans. But I just want to know how this dynamic works out, because you just said your girlfriend is a Bucs fan, you're a Saints fan. So what's the household like? And when the Bucs do beat the Saints, which they've done quite a bit here lately, my friend, are you sleeping on the couch? I mean, how does that work out? Go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
As I tell her, I'm a college guy. NFL, I'm not as invested in. I'm not as close. Ever since the Saints lost Breeze, I've kind of fallen off with them. I'll be honest. I've gone more to an LSU fan. I watch him for basically Demario Davis and watching Marshawn Lattimore lock down Mike Evans every game.
All right, so they're not every game now. Watch it. We're on with Ryan Neal here, newest member of Amped Up Sports. Welcome, of course, to the Sports Web, and of course, the legend himself, Leo Haggerty. I'm your host, Peter Blake. giving you something to think about. So with that being said, do you think the Bucks will get that signed, sealed, and delivered? Because Jason Light put it out there. We'll hear from Jason Light a little bit later here. I'll go with you, Leo, first. Baker Mayfield, big-time priority at this point. It certainly seems so. They've already started contract negotiations with not only Mayfield, but Evans and Wirfs, Winfield Jr. and David. I mean, what do you think of this situation when it comes to Mayfield?
Well, I'll tell you what, Peter, when I heard you say 4 years, $120 million, I almost, had a spit take over here.
Yes.
On my Wisconsin Cup. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, this is going to be determined by the draft. And this is a big if Michael Penix is hanging around there at 26, I don't think you want to give Baker Mayfield more than 2-3 years. That's it. Because, again, let's look at the history of this. Aaron Rodgers got drafted when the Packers didn't need a quarterback.
Yeah.
But they knew coming down the road they were going to need one. And again, what team was the last one to pass on Aaron Rodgers before he went to Green Bay? Oh, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, and they also, the story is, I don't know if Bucs fans know this, but John Gruden at the time actually Jerry Rice flew out to California, had Jerry Rice come in and catch passes from Aaron Rodgers, and specifically told him if he were on the board at 5 at the time, which, by the way, they drafted Cadillac Williams, and he said the same thing to Mike Williams of USC, of course, turned into a fat tight end. But he told Aaron Rodgers, if you're on the board, I'll take you. Of course, he didn't, and the rest remains history. But Baker Mayfield, Ryan, where do you stand on him getting a contract extension? Is $30 million too much in your opinion? Because that seems like it's the quarterback market, and it's kind of following the Daniel Jones recipe for disaster, if you will. That guy didn't deserve 40 to 45 million, got $40 million, to have 22 total touchdowns, 15 throwing. I thought it was a joke. If you're the Bucs, you can't follow that recipe, right? You got to have Mayfield at 25 or 30, no more than that, right?
I think they're at a fair range. And, Baker Mayfield didn't light up the stat sheet, as they would say, but I think he was a locker room hero and really, got everyone in Tampa to get behind the team. Everyone loved his energy, loved what he brought to the team. And Tampa Bay's not in a bad spot. They have a fairly decent O-line. Tight end with I can't think of his name, Otten. He's young. He has a good career looking ahead of him. Mike Evans is the big question mark. I think they can maybe let Levante David go and let Devin White finally jump into that. Devin.
We disagree, my friend. I think Devin White is going to be jumping right on out of here because he's been disappointing. I know you got your LSU roots there, but I just don't think they're going to have the money to. I think Levante David still is the best linebacker on this team, even at his age of 33, 34 years old. You find a way to re-sign him. You let Devin White go. Maybe have a change of scenery. He came on the scene, was fantastic in 19 and 20, especially against the Saints there in that postseason run. And ever since then, in my opinion, I think he's regressed. Just my opinion.
Yeah, and but with Baker Mayfield, I think, if you're not paying 45 for him like Daniel Jones, I think that's a lot better. And you're in a good spot as the Tampa Bay Bucks. You did really good this year. You got a lot really nice, good young talent on the defensive secondary. I like where they're at. And if a quarterback's hanging around 26, get him. But my biggest issue, Leo, is you like Michael Penix so much, but if you have him sit behind Baker Mayfield, the dude's already 25. How many years are you going to let him sit behind him? And he's going to, what age is he going to be starting in the NFL? He might be 27, 28 when he first starts.
I'll tell you what, Leo, go ahead with that, and then we'll talk about Michael Penix and where you have him ranked, Ryan, in your opinion. But go ahead, Leo.
Ryan, that's an excellent observation. And if he wasn't a quarterback, I'd agree with you. But being that the quarterback's playing a skirt and it's touch football on those guys, he can go up at least 7 or 8 years. 25, he should be still good, 33, 34, maybe even 35. Because look at what he does. He has the quickest release, and that thing comes out as a missile. But, yeah, he's a little bit older. But I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are down mid to late first round that are going to go to good football teams. Think about that now. That's, when you see a guy go early, he's going to a bad football team.
Yeah.
Look what the amazing thing is what C.J. Stroud did, going to Houston, turning them around. Because Carolina, they took the wrong guy. Peter, we agreed it was the wrong guy way back then.
Yeah.
And it cost, the head coach and that whole coaching staff their job because they went with the wrong guy. That's the problem about having the first pick. And if I'm the Chicago Bears, I need so many pieces. I'm trading it to try to get as much talent as I can.
We'll get back to that in a moment. I want to go out to these comments. Roger Sue says, I'm listening from Disney All-Star Sports Resort at Disney, so appreciate it. You're on a vacation and you're listening here as the tribal troll there. Let me go ahead and acknowledge you.
Acknowledge me.
Let's go out to Lady B. Nina. Hello, how you doing? Welcome to Evolution.
Yeah.
Let's go out to Mr. Williams here. 58 Tampa Bay for life. We'll get back to Shaq Barrett because he got it looks like the Bucs are going to move on. It's going to be a post-June 1st cut there to save them cap. Jason Light talked about that, so we'll get to Light's comments on finding another team tomorrow. I go to Animal Kingdom. Sandra Nagel watching the best sports talk show, The Sports Web with Amped Up Sports. 1252, and I Love St. Pete with Leo Haggerty. Roger says Bears take Caleb Williams and Christopher Cole. Baker is injury prone, so Penix could jump right in the first year. With that being said, though, Baker, basically didn't miss a game all year long. I mean, even being at 70, 60, 75%. But let's talk about Penix Jr. Ryan, where do you lie on him? Where do you stand? Because I think he's one of the top quarterbacks, if not, as crazy as this sounds, the top quarterback in the draft. No, because not only can he throw the ball deep with 54% accuracy, but he's also been through adversity with the 2 knee injuries, and he's played at a high level the last 2 years for Washington. So, Ryan, where do you lie on Penix Jr.?
I'm really high on him. I have him. I made my own little draft order of like the top 10 QBs, and I have him in my top 4 tied for the 3rd or 4th spot just with Drake May. I think you can kind of mix and match those two, but I'm really high on him. I love what he did this year. I think there was 1 or 2 games it was inconsistent from him. I think it was the Arizona State game where I think he had a really rough time. I think there was another game he had one. So I'm really curious of what was going on. And in the Michigan game, he had some issues too, but that was the offensive line just crumbling around him. And Michigan's defense is getting after him. But I'm really high on Michael Penix. I like him. His arm strength is awesome.
If he's there at 26, like Leo says, do you think the Bucs will take him?
I'm not too sure. It matters if they sign Baker Mayfield, but I think if they don't, and if he's sitting there, I think they jump on him.
Okay. All right. Leo, I'm going to go back to you. Shaq Barrett being released. Is this the right decision? Because ever since he had 19 and a half sacks, and I get it, he means a lot to the community, what he's done, what he's brought. There's great memories there of that defense causing havoc versus Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowl 55. And, of course, tragically losing his little baby daughter, playing through that injury this year. But he hasn't been the same player since 2019. And then furthermore, it's something like a $15 million cap hit. So was this the right decision by the Bucs to move on? Because you have Yaya Diaby waiting in the wings and also possibly a Marquise Watts and, of course, a Jose Ramirez. So is this the right move by the Bucs organization to release Shaq Barrett?
Financially, Peter, yes. Locker room-wise, no. And please understand the listeners. Yeah, he had all those sacks. All that does is it puts a target on you for every offensive coordinator when you go into a meeting. Okay, we got to make sure we know where this guy is, and we got to protect the quarterback.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, it is so hard to put back-to-back large sack seasons together simply because now you're a 100-man.
Well, it's true. And, Ryan, he hasn't been able to duplicate that success. So we'll see what they do with the Yaya Diaby. And, of course, JTS, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who hasn't necessarily worked out. Maybe, and Leo, in your opinion, and Ryan, in your opinion, do you feel like if there is a edge rusher, say a Chop Robinson from Penn State, do you run to the podium and get him? Or do you go with some of these young guys that Jason Light has already drafted? Or if you have enough money, because you have all these decisions you have to make, of course, with re-signing your own guys. Do you go with somebody in free agency, Leo?
Peter, again, I'm not going to second guess Jason Licht because he's pretty smart with this. He knows where to go and what he's doing.
Yeah.
And again, being at the combine, the biggest thing they have at the combine is nothing to do on the field. It's the personal interviews, because they've got at least 30 games over a player's 2-year career, at least 30 that they can look at. And again, that one-eyed monster does not lie. It'll tell you whether this guy can play or not. And again, Peter, I've said this so often on your show.
Yep.
If I had a scout come in and told me the reason we need to draft this guy is because what he did at the combine, I would fire the guy on the spot. I want to know what he does on Saturday. Show me what he does on Saturday that equates to Sunday. Not underwear football, as Lovie Smith used to call it, what they're doing out in Indianapolis.
Even Todd Bowles talked about this, Ryan, with his press conference, saying, it gives us the opportunity to see these guys and maybe pay attention to them more, of course, if they run a high 40 time, but it's always off a tape. When you look at these prospects involved in the NFL draft, do you really care about the combine, or are you looking at the tape at the end of the day?
I don't personally, for me, I don't look at the combine. I look at what they do on the field and what they produce. And sometimes that doesn't relate to the NFL, and sometimes the combine doesn't relate to the NFL. It's kind of a hit or miss with that. But I tend to not listen to the combine as much, because what does a 40 time really translate to on the field when the field's 100 yards? That's what I would say. Why are we only running 40% of the field? But yeah, I'm
Makes sense.
field.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And, Leo, I think we found our draft analyst here on Amped Up Sports. I like this guy, even though he's LSU and New Orleans Saints. I'll let that pass. Let's go out to Jeremiah here. Everyone, Shadow is here. Thanks a lot, Jeremiah, for tuning in. Ben Cornett has this to say: Bears have 2 draft picks in the top 10, having that number 1 pick. They should trade down for more picks. That's a position that's rare to be in. Bears should trade that first pick for even more picks, and they can still draft a quarterback in the first round, possibly in the late first round. So let me go out to you, Ryan, because, all the scuttlebutt, if you will, has been Justin Fields possibly going to the Atlanta Falcons. I've said this before, time and time again on this show, that I feel like the Falcons made a major mistake by not drafting Justin Fields. Instead of taking, they took Kyle Pitts instead. Now they have an opportunity to possibly get a Justin Fields. What do you see with Justin Fields last year with the Chicago Bears? How much do you think he will command? Will he command a first-round pick, or is it 2 second-round picks? Is this the right move for the Atlanta Falcons?
Man, you never know. The Falcons, they haven't done anything right since 28-3. But I really want them. But I want them to succeed as a Saints fan. I feel bad for them. But I think if they go with Justin Fields, I think that'll be better than Desmond Ritter. I think much is better than Desmond Ritter. But I think the Bears are in such like a rock and a hard place, because if you get Caleb Williams, then your ceiling is sky high. Whoever gets Caleb Williams, everyone is expecting you to be the Super Bowl contender at this point. That's how much hype is behind Caleb Williams. And I love him to death, but I still think they should stick with Justin Fields and trade back and get some more to help them out. I think they have that top 10 pick. I think that's going to help them out a lot. And they can get a bunch for that first-round pick. That meant that number 1 overall pick. That's going to be awesome for them. I think they'll be a spot.
Well, absolutely. You could get multiple first-round picks, 2, 3 first-round picks. Leo, do you buy this nonsense of Justin Fields being traded to the Atlanta Falcons or possibly the Raiders? I mean, the Raiders, why would the Raiders do this? Don't they have the former offensive coordinator of the Bears? How did that work out? And Luke Getsy. So, basically you're trying to reunite them, and it feels so good. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the greatest thing for Justin Fields to be with Luke Getsy. So what are the Raiders thinking? Is this nonsense? Do you think the Bears are playing poker, or are they legitimately trying to trade Justin Fields, in your opinion, to take Caleb Williams?
You know what, Peter? Here's the thing. I got to stress this. You've got to separate the information from the misinformation. And again, I'm going to go all the way back to Warren Sapp. Somebody, the Chicago Bears, but I won't tell who it was, floated the information that Sapp had flunked numerous drug tests. Well, he kept falling. Well, he didn't fall past the Bucks, which is, I think Chicago was 2 or 3 picks behind. They
Right.
wanted Warren Sapp, but they didn't get it. Peter, what I don't understand about the Bears, you've got your quarterback right now. And again, my brother Tom, he's up in Chicago. He came over about 2/3 of the way through the season, called me up and said, hey, this guy can play. He just has nothing around him. They need to keep him. They need to trade the pick. They need to get a number of different positions to fill. Wide receiver, offensive line, secondary. They can do that now. But if they trade away Justin Fields and they take Caleb Williams, you're just going for the frying pan to the fire. Because, again, if I'm picking, I want a guy that's a winner. Caleb Williams couldn't beat Michael Penix the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That has to tell me something right away, that this is not happening. And again, when you're that top pick, you're going to a bad football team unless somebody trades up for you. I think the biggest thing right now the Bears need to do, they need to figure out, okay, is Fields our guy? If he is, let's trade the pick. If he isn't, let's trade him and figure out who the quarterback is. And you know what, Ryan, I'm going to throw it to you. I would love to see Daniels up there in a Bears uniform, because I'll tell you what, he is exciting to watch, isn't he?
Listen, as an LSU fan who's been watching since 2006, I like him more than Burrow just because of the flashes. He, as of last year with the 2022 season, he was like, I think 64% of our offense. And this year, I think it was even more. He was throwing the ball downfield. He made huge improvements to his deep ball, his decision-making in the pocket. And he made huge steps in every single aspect of his game. I love him.
Well, we talked to Brian Kelly about him at the ReliaQuest Bowl, and he talked nothing but, great stuff. And, of course, you can see it on film. I mean, where do you rank him with this quarterback class? A lot of people say Caleb Williams is the guy. Drake May is the guy. I say Michael Penix Jr. could be the guy. But where does Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback with all those gaudy numbers in college football, rank for you?
I have him at 2. I have him as a second best quarterback. I leave Williams at 1 because, it just seems he's not getting off of Mel Kiper's number 1 list every anytime soon, it seems. But I'm a Jaden Daniels lover all the way. I love his scrambling ability. I think everyone is pro comp as Lamar Jackson. That's what everyone says. He has the same. He has the same type of play style. I just don't think he has that, like, the spin move and all that juking that Lamar Jackson has. But man, does Jaden Daniels float on his feet when he runs? He does a little juke. It's like he glides to the left, glides to the right, and he outran the entire Florida defense and the secondary. They couldn't catch him. That says a lot about a team, about a player too, about a quarterback especially.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I want to go out to this right here. Ben Cornett says game tape has been and always will be the best evaluation tool for players. Do you agree with that, Leo? Best evaluation is the tape instead of the combine, which is, I think there's too much of a big deal made. But although it goes back to what Todd Bowles had to say in so many words, it does put some emphasis on that player. So if you haven't seen that player on tape before, now you're going to go back to the tape and say, well, why is this guy, how we overlooked him? He ran a 4.2 or 4.3, right?
You know what, Peter? That's the only thing you should be using is the tape. Again, what we want to see happen at the combine is the personal interviews. You want to see that because nothing on that field. You're not going to see a guy run 40 yards in shorts. You're not going to see a guy catch 3 passes in one snap. You're not going to see a guy do a shuttle run on defense before he rushes the quarterback. I always said that all the combine was spring break for coaches because they got to get away for a week. Yep. They got to sit down and see. And again, schedule your interviews, go and see, and trust me, they've already seen tape. There's nothing there that they can sell you and say, well, gee, I didn't know this guy. Oh, they know it's existed. Because in the scouting world, you go out and you make an initial evaluation, then another scout comes and backs that up and says yay or nay. Then you go from there. And this is something that people need to understand. These small colleges, they're getting looked at, and they're getting found. Look at the Bucks on offensive line.
Yeah.
Two guys from North Dakota State, and then one guy from Albany or Albion or whatever. My God, you don't even know what state that's in, more or less where the school is. But I'll tell you what, those scouts find them.
They do. You're absolutely correct. I mean, you found Ali Marpet. You put him at center at first, go and left guard, and he becomes a Pro Bowler. You have, Cody Mock, who is most likely going to be your starting right guard. They have a need there at left guard still. You're talking about Luke Gedeke. He goes to left guard, couldn't play there. Right tackle now, it certainly seems like he's a guy that you're going to build around going forward with Tristan Wirfs at the left side, Luke Gedeke at the right side. I want to go out to Roger Shue here. Thank you for the Bears talk. Bear down. Fields is gone. What do you think, Ryan? Is Fields gone in your opinion?
I think they're starting to look at the potential of Williams to the potential of Fields, and I think they're kind of seeing the ceiling is higher from one than the other. But, we'll see. I can't wait to see in 3-4 years down the line and see what was the best choice and who messed up.
Well, Caleb Williams, what's your concern about him? Because a lot of people will say it's the fact that he didn't necessarily play that well this year in big games. Seems like he wasn't very interested, too emotional. I don't know if he could play through adverse situations. Maybe that's unfair, but that's where I'm looking at quarterbacks. That's why I say Penix Jr. is rated highly, in my opinion, because, that quarterback is going to go to a bad team, and it's not necessarily going to work out for them. So how would that quarterback face those challenges? Caleb Williams, what's the concerns for you, Ryan?
Can he live up to the hype? And that's my big one, is because everyone's holding him on this pedestal. And this past football season, everyone kind of, they're like, oh, he didn't play that well. Both the Heisman winner last year and Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams had, I think, two of the top 10 worst defenses in college football, and they had to score 45-plus points to win football games.
Yeah,
that's hard to ask of any quarterback. Yeah. And we're still doing it to a point, they had winning records still. And that's the same thing with Jaden Daniels that I hear too. I'm going back to him real quick because I love him. But it's just
we know.
And it's, can you do the same thing every week in the NFL? And I think they both can. I think Caleb can do it, and I think that he is the clear number one overall choice. Now, when it comes down to the emotions, I forget what game it was, but there was a viral thing that went around where he was crying with, I think it was his mother, actually, on the sidelines after a loss to a team.
Correct.
And so everyone's like, oh, he's too, but why would you be crying on the sideline? Man, this is your last year. USC had hopes of making a national championship, making the college football playoff, because they see we have Zakarian Branch. We have this great, prodigy quarterback. We have this talent on offense. Let's get to it. And then just to see the defense get straight up cooked like it's a Sunday barbecue after church, it's just like it's pretty sad to see. So I understand why he was emotional. And I think after seeing the defense go out there and get just torched every single week, I think that took a toll on him. And he realized, all right, I can't do enough for this team because of the defense. So I'm just going to wait for the draft. I think that's kind of why you saw him kind of mentally check out.
You know what, Peter? You know why Ryan likes Southern Cal so much? Because they had the only defense worse than LSU. And believe me, when Brian Kelly sat down, and Peter, you remember this like it was yesterday, when he said, if we just had an average defense, we wouldn't have lost the game. What does that tell you? Just an average defense. Those two quarterbacks lit it up. Yeah. I'll tell you what, though. I want a winner. I want a guy who can win under center. And when I looked at Daniel Jeremiah's little blurb on Michael Penix, the only thing he has is durability. Can he handle that 2 knee surgeries? Other than that, every box is checked. So I just don't understand why he has fallen so far behind, McNamara of Michigan. He's behind Bo Nix. I mean, he's beaten Bo Nix 3 times. He's beaten Caleb Williams twice. Okay, what else do you want the guy to do? Sell hot dogs at halftime?
Well, I'm going to ask, and that's J.J. McCarthy. I think McNamara is the other quarterback.
No, McNamara's banned. But
it's McCarthy that's the guy that may be looked at as a first-round pick. We shall see.
Right.
But you've been a former scout before. Is that a red flag for you with Williams being that emotional and, kind of taking a step back? Or are we kind of being too critical when it comes to quarterbacks? Because, yeah, you almost have to be, right? The success rate of drafting a first-round quarterback, it isn't a certainty anymore because they throw the quarterbacks in there so fast and expect them to develop and get the offense right away. And it usually doesn't work out because they're not like the Green Bay Packers where you bench a guy for a couple years, 2-3 years, unless you're Patrick Mahomes, which it took 1 year. But you go 3 years, you let that quarterback learn and marinate, and then you have Jordan Love. So Caleb Williams, are you being too critical, Leo, in your opinion, when it comes to being emotional, taking a step back against top competition? Where do you stand on Mr. Williams?
Oh, yeah. You throwing him into the wolves, that's tough. And again, Peter, I'll go back to Carmen Perone. Carmen Perone was the chief scout of the New Orleans Saints when I first broke into this business back in the late 1970s, early 1980s. And I asked Carmen, I said, what do I need to know about a first-round pick? He said, your first-round pick needs to play. But he said, unless it's a quarterback, you want to sit him at least a year because that's how fast the game becomes going from college to the NFL. Look at these guys that are doing really well. Now, the exception to that rule is Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Anybody want to guess how many games Peyton Manning won his rookie year?
I think it was
one, folks.
One. Yeah, one.
One.
Yep. And he threw double-digit interceptions there. And, of course, his offensive coordinator was who? B.A. Bruce Arians, of course, getting the title, the moniker, if you will, of quarterback whisperer. But he helped develop a Manning. But it was a bumpy road there. Ryan, let me come back to you. Is that a red flag for, emotion? If you're a scout, you're scouting Williams. I mean, give me your quarterback list here and tell me why you got them ranked. Drake May's in there. Jaden Daniels, of course, is number 2 for you. Michael Penix Jr. How do you rank these quarterbacks, Ryan?
I'm going to go down the list here. First, Williams. Second, Jaden Daniels. Tied for 3rd and 4th is Drake May and Michael Penix. Slight lean to Michael Penix. I like what he does more. Drake May. I'm going to be honest. The Pac-12 was stacked this year with just talented teams. The ACC was kind of on a down year, and Drake May having not so good of a year in the ACC, I think shows worse for his case.
Right.
But going to 5th, and this is going to surprise some people because I'm not on that McCarthy bandwagon. He's a glorified, he just hands the ball off. That's his highlights.
Okay.
But Spencer Rattler, I think his arm strength, and there's something there with him. I'll never forget his first year at not USC, Oklahoma, where he lit up. He had a couple games. He lit up some things. And even his last year at South Carolina, I loved it. Then I have Michael Pratt and then J.J. McCarthy. And
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So why?
Hey, Peter, let me jump in real quick because I'm going to have to get off. The throat's kind of like a 2-minute warning.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you who's going to really benefit from all these other quarterbacks. Bo Nix. Bo Nix is going to fall down to the mid to late 1st round. He's going to go to a good football team.
Yeah.
He's not going to have to go out and produce Drake May or these guys. Michael Penix, same thing. He's going to fall to a good team. He's not going to have to play right away.
And
that is a plus for these guys because, Peter, unless you've been on the sideline, and I've been on the sideline when Michael Vick was playing.
Sure.
I asked Rondé Barber, I said, when is Vick at full speed? He said on his 2nd step. Michael Vick was just unbelievably fast, changed the whole complexion of the game, made the running quarterback, made the mobile quarterback what it is today. And I'll tell you what, Peter, I'm going to leave you at this note. I think we found a gem in the rough with Ryan Neal, didn't we?
Oh, I definitely think we did. Let me ask you one last question, and we'll get you both out of here. Once again, Ryan, we'll definitely bring you back. We'll talk draft probably next week here because the combine will be ending, and that's when you get guys that either threw or didn't throw or stand out. As a scout, do you feel like there is somewhat of an advantage or disadvantage to throw at a combine? And do you hold that against an NFL or a college prospect, Leo, if they don't throw? Caleb Williams is not going to throw at this combine. Is that a disadvantage for him? Do you look and say, why isn't he being more competitive? Why is he waiting to the pro day? Or does it matter to you?
When I'm the number one pick in the draft, what can happen, Peter? I can fall. Why do I want to even go out and do that? I've already put 13 games on film. What more do you want? That's the thing. If I'm an agent, I'm telling my kid, you're not going to go out there and do anything. You're going to go out there, you're going to talk to teams, you're going to do that. But go out there and throw? No. Go out there and run? No, not at all. That's for guys who are like second, third, and fourth round draft picks that may be able to move up. But I don't hold that against anybody for not going out and performing on the field.
How about you, Ryan? Is that a red flag for you? Would you like to see these guys be more competitive, have that competitive nature, or it doesn't really matter to you as long as they do it, of course, at their pro day and on film?
I think as long as they do it at their pro day and it's on film, they're good. Again, I think the combine is overrated. I think it's just the NFL's in the boring period. They're trying to get some ratings and some money.
I'll tell you right now, for a guy first time making his appearance, besides the who dat and the LSU nonsense there, you did pretty good, my friend. Thanks a lot for coming on the Evolution.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, there you go. Ryan Neal right there, newest member of Amped Up Sports. Leo, thanks a lot for your time. As always, my friend, anything you want to promote here on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television?
Well, again, I put out today on my blog that USF, the fact that people are talking about they have to win the tournament just to get in, that they're not even going to get in as at large. That's another travesty, another Florida snubbing. FSU in football, now it'll be USF in basketball. But go to our Amped Up Sports page. You can see it, post a blog every day. And you know what, Peter? We're almost ready for baseball, aren't we?
Well, we are definitely almost ready for baseball. Lots of questions remain about the Tampa Bay Rays, the stadium situation, 2.4 billion reasons why. I'm not sure if that's going to get done or not, but we'll see. I mean, the facts and figures came out. I'm not surprised by it. The Rays are all about themselves. This ownership is about the best deal for them. Leo, thanks a lot for your time here on the Evolution, all right?
Talk to you next Wednesday from San Antonio, Texas.
Love it. There you go. All right, let's go out to the phone lines. Ed, leading it off here on the Sports Web. What's on your mind tonight here on a happy
Hump Day
edition?
Hey, it's been a great show.
Thank you.
I was insulted by the who that guy, but you know what? He's all right.
Yeah, he's all right, and we'll go ahead and tolerate him. But I got a feeling that it may go back and forth with me and him when it comes to the Saints and LSU. But I thought it was really good tonight, and definitely a great pickup by Amped Up Sports. And we're gonna have him back on, periodically here, talking about the NFL draft, because the draft is only a couple months away, April. So we definitely got you covered here on the Sports Web. What else is on your mind?
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of LSU than the Saints, as you probably know. But because we've had some pretty good LSU players in Tampa, so
somewhat, but, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Riddell Anthony was a LSU product, but
Riddell Anthony was not. Riddell Anthony was a Florida Gator.
Oh, was he? My bad. That was definitely an insult on him.
Yes, you're thinking of Devin White. You're thinking of Quan Alexander.
Quan Alexander, yeah.
Who's another LSU Tiger out there that played well, that escapes me right now. But, those are the two guys that I could think of. They also had a linebacker who played for a short time. He was showing flashes of brilliance. So, yeah, there's definitely been some players out there for LSU that the Bucs like, and we'll see if they decide to dip into that well again. But I think Devin White, I disagree with him. I think Devin White is out of here. He's seen his best days with the Bucs.
Yeah, I think he's out of here too. They're not going to pay him anything what he wants.
Right.
So he's out of here.
No.
So what's the big word on Baker?
Well, the big word is, and Jason Light mentioned this, and we'll play that press conference from the draft. They've already started negotiations, and I'm not surprised by it. I mean, the early reports would suggest that it's 3 years, $75 million. Other projections, 4 years, $120 million. I could expect 25 to 30 million if you go over that. But the cap has gone up, right? So it went up $30 million. That was the best news for Bucs fans out there. A lot of people would say, well, it's not only good for the Bucs, it's also good for the NFL teams. Yeah, maybe so. But Baker's interested in coming back and re-signing. Todd Bowles wants him to come back. Jason Light and the brain trust over there want him to come back. So let them cook, if you will, as the kids would say that. Let them do their work. And as the great TJ Reeves said, and I mentioned this on Saturday at the Elite 7-on-7s, it's better that everything is quiet right now because Jason Light and his guys over there are doing their work. So we'll see how it works. I think they will get all these players signed. Jason Light even mentioned this, and we're going to go out to the press conference here in a little bit. But if they're able to just re-sign their guys, they should have a boat parade. And he's exactly right. Yeah. You re-sign a Baker Mayfield, a Mike Evans, an Antoine Winfield Jr., a Levante David, a Tristan Wirfs, which is not a free agent, but you can get him signed. You can free up some more money. So they have ways of doing it. And then you're cutting Shaq Barrett, so you're trying to save about $5 million to the cap this year. So again, they know what they're doing. What have I heard? I've heard what you've heard. I think they're interested in getting Baker done. Baker is interested in re-signing with the Bucs. And then furthermore, Baker wants to play with Evans. Evans wants to play with Baker. I choose you. You choose me. Let's all have a family. That's what it sounds like to me. Giving you a little rap there about the Bucs.
So I think what's going to happen is they'll sign Baker first, and then they'll sign Evans. I think Evans may end up being the last to get signed, maybe, possibly. But I think Baker gets signed first. I think it's what really makes a wide receiver happy to play for a team is the quarterback at the end of the day, because that's the guy throwing him the ball, And if Evans really likes Baker, which it sounds like it, then I guess, if you sign him first, then you pretty much got Evans at that point. So, yeah, I think that's what's going to happen there. I'm interested in seeing how they're going to keep Anton Winfield tagged. He's franchise tagged, so they got to pay him top free safety money. Basically.
Okay.
Is that how it works with the franchise tag?
Well, I mean, the franchise tag would work like this. Mike Evans is going to be $28 million because he's going to receive 120% increase. Usually that wide receiver tag, because T. Higgins just got it from Cincinnati, Michael Pittman Jr. is going to get that from the Colts. It would usually be $20 million. But in this case, because of that rule, it would be $28 million. So the Bucs are not going to, put all that money towards Evans. They're going to try to work out a better deal at the end of the day. With Baker Mayfield to be like $35 or $36 million. You're not going to do that. Antoine Winfield Jr., $16 to $17 million. That's more doable. The Bucs have only had 7 franchise players in their history, so it's not a guarantee that they're going to franchise Winfield Jr. To me, the better situation is to get him signed
so they didn't do that already?
Huh?
I heard they franchised him.
No, they did not. There's nothing been official. March 5th of next week on a Tuesday. That is a big date with your deadline if you want to franchise a player or not.
Okay. I thought I heard somewhere they franchised him. My bad.
Man.
I'm glad I called you. You got me.
I got you here. What do you think about
In fact, I do believe I sent you a text about it. I
did.
Why would you franchise a defense? See, this is, to me, if you're going to franchise somebody, you're going to franchise an offensive guy.
Well, no, I don't necessarily think it works out that way, Ed. I know where you're coming from, but Antoine Winfield Jr. is one of the best safeties, if not the best safety in the league. He's still young, and you don't want to see him go somewhere else. And in that case, if you're not able to work out a long-term deal, then you have that. Jason Light talked about that, and Mr. Williams will get your call in a moment. Let me ask you this, Ed, and then we're going to let you go here and use that second call. Shaq Barrett being cut. What were your thoughts on that? And what's your best memory of Mr. Shaq Barrett here on the Evolution?
In the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sacking Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
I think he got 3 sacks in that game, and he was a beast back then, but the years have definitely caught up to him. I just don't think he's anywhere near.
Yeah, he's up there in age, and I feel bad because I love Shaq Barrett. I've been able to talk to Shaq Barrett before. Good guy. Good guy for the
Is
community.
It possible they might bring him back as with a lesser deal? Maybe something where he's just going to be depth.
I think there's a possibility, but it certainly seems like the reason why they cut him in the first place is so he can find a team before everybody else. But I guess anything is possible if he's not getting the money and he feels comfortable with coming back to the Bucks if he doesn't get picked up. But I just think the Bucks want to move on from him. They want to find a younger option. They want to get better at that position. Is there a possibility they bring him back? Certainly, but I think with them cutting him early in this process, I think it's unlikely. I think he'll probably go and choose another team. Ed, thanks a lot for the call.
All right, man. Thanks.
I hope the move went well for you. Absolutely. Open phone lines, Mr. Williams. 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. Again, this is the evolution of sports talk television. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about, talking Bucks free agency, of course, coming in here the next couple of weeks. Combine going on. Any prospects out there you're looking at besides a Michael Penix Jr.? Definitely want to hear from you. Let's go out to these comments here. I got, where's the Greek? Greek is not on tonight, having, just taking some time off, having a little bit of some health issues here. So he's going to get better. He'll get back on the evolution. The door is always open. Ray Kennedy, Tampa Bay Ray. Fellas, what's going on, Ray? Always welcome to come on, call in if you want to, my friend. Dave says Daniels is the best quarterback in this draft. I think there's a lot of draft pundits out there that would say what he did on the field for that team. You could definitely declare him as the best quarterback in this draft. But they continue to say Caleb Williams, Caleb Williams, Caleb Williams. Now, is Daniels going to throw at the combine? If he does something spectacular, does that move up his stock? Does it? I mean, he's a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. I don't know what more he could do to move his stock up. So I think that's the reason why, Williams is not going to throw, because he doesn't want to ruin his stock, right? And if he needs to throw, he'll do that in the pro day. But good stuff, Dave. Caleb will be a bust. Flag it. I will do that, Dave. Thank you very much for the comment. Appreciate you as always.
Oh, yeah.
May is not as good as advertised. Caleb Williams and Harrison Jr. to the Bears. I don't know how you're going to be able to get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. It's going to either be one or the other. Somebody is going to draft Harrison in that top 5. And I'm not sure the Bears can get back there. Now, could they trade out of that first round pick, take a Harrison, take other players? That's certainly possible. For me, the great situation would be the Bears trade out to number 2 to the Washington Commanders because they need a quarterback. The Commanders take Caleb Williams. Cliff Kingsbury is there as an offensive coordinator. They give you a plethora, Leo word, of picks. You trade down to that number 2 spot. You take the best player on the board. If it's Marvin Harrison Jr., you take him. You take another wide receiver. If it's not, later on with the first round pick, is you have 8? And you start to address those needs. To me, that's more likely. That's a more likely scenario, in my opinion. You trade out to 2, you get multiple first-round picks, you start to address those needs and build around a Justin Fields. Just my opinion. I don't like, quarterback musical chairs, unless you believe that Justin Fields going forward is not your quarterback of the future. If that's what you believe, Chicago Bears, then I guess you take Caleb Williams, if that's your franchise guy. But remember, you're resetting this. What is this, 2-3 years? That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It doesn't always work out. It kind of sets your team back, I guess. And I think you got more needs in the quarterback there. You got needs at offensive line. You got needs at defensive end. You get an edge rusher. You could go after another wide receiver to pair it with DJ Moore. I mean, there's needs there. You're taking one player and then you're going down and take another player. I think you trade out of that. That's what makes sense to me. Again, just my opinion. Let's go out to Dave, who sucks. The Saints completely agree With that,
Yes!
let's go on to Dave again. What do you think about the Bucs being ranked 24th in the player organization survey? We're going to get to that in a moment, so I will answer that question, Dave. The Chiefs ranked last and won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. Just reading that story. That's interesting in itself. Christopher Cole Light had a difficult time with cutting Shaq, and Shaq had to calm him down because it is a business. You know, it's nothing personal. We would all like Shaq to stay on this team, but you have that cap hit, and he's not the same player. He would even tell you he's not the same player. And even Shaq said it's about the business. He said this at the end of the Detroit game. He wasn't sure if he was going to be back or not. That's the NFL, unfortunately. Eagles are open to trading Hassan Reddick. Would the Bucs be interested in getting another pass rusher or draft one? More than anything else, I think you draft one or you go in-house. You have guys in-house. You could go with Marquise Watts, number 58, which consequently used to be Shaq's number. You could go with a Jose Ramirez, who we got in the later rounds last year. Right? Yaya Diaby is going to be one of those players they definitely count on. He's your future. Kalijah Cansey's your future. Could you draft at 26? I think you more so draft one. Because if you have to give up, and Reddick, he's going to cost you what? Maybe a first or second round pick? You think Jason Light's going to do that? I'm not sure. But it's a good point. I just don't see that happening. All right, let's talk about this Bucs players survey kind of deal. This in care of Joe Bucs fan. Players threw a few darts at Team Glazer, in this case, Joel Glazer. The survey noted the following. Club owner Joel Glazer receives a rating of 6.1 out of 10. Ouch. When considering his willingness to invest in the facilities, 29th overall. Also, is Todd Bowles a player's coach? Apparently not. Bowles got a B grade and ranked 26th among NFL head coaches. The survey says 90% of Bucs players feel that head coach Todd Bowles is efficient with their time, 18th overall. The players feel that Todd Bowles is somewhat willing to listen to the locker room, 25th overall. Tampa Bay got strong marks for everything relating to training staff, strength coaches, and workout facilities, which is always a good thing. The team's nutritionist, dietitian earned the following accolade. 88% of the players feel like they got a individualized individual plan, 10th overall. And it seems some players compared the Bucs locker room to Motel 6 on Highway 301 in East Tampa. That's according to Joe Bucs fan. So there you go. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, again, it goes back to what Tulio said. The Chiefs in that survey were ranked last. They won the Super Bowl. Does it really matter? I mean, does it really matter to, free agents? I don't necessarily think so. So I'm interested to see what players were. I mean, was that their own players? Was it other players? It seems like their own players saying that. I don't know. Interesting. The major issue brought up by the players is a lack of cleanliness. Isn't that for everybody? I mean, you go to my apartment. I got to clean my apartment every week. If I don't clean my apartment, it's a pigsty. It's important to have cleanliness, right? Cleanliness is godliness. The players say the locker room is not clean, constantly smelly, and has a persistent bug issue in the showers. They also mentioned that the sauna is dirty or moldy, small, and constantly breaking down. The players feel the locker room is old, outdated, and needs to be renovated. Ouch! All right, let's go out to Mr. Williams here. Mr. Williams, welcome to the Evolution. What do you think about those comments about the locker room? I thought the locker room is not supposed to smell great. It's full of football players that are sweating. What's going on here?
Yeah, right now it don't supposed to smell great. If the locker room do smell great, somebody ain't great.
Well, there you go. It's supposed to smell like, that's probably what it smells like.
Yeah. But no, hey. All right. First of all, Jason Light, you do good picks, but we gonna hate to see Shaq get out of here. Hey, we gonna hate to see him leave. But we hope. Well, I hope he do go somewhere and do great.
Well, yeah, and
But
that's all you can hope for. But that was, in your opinion, was
yeah.
that the right move?
Well, nah,
No.
because due to the fact is you got a lot of these young guys really looked up to number 58 / number 7. Okay, you got a lot of the young guys that just drafted looked up to Shite. Okay, but I got one little issue about tonight.
Was there our guest? The guest is gone.
Yeah.
I know what you're gonna say. He was a Saints fan. He's at LSU. I know.
No.
It made you angry, didn't it?
It's just no, not that. Not that. Hey, cool. He's a Saints fan.
Right.
But what he said is let Levante Davis walk.
Yes.
And keep Devin White.
Yeah.
I say I'm finna light in on his rear.
Yeah, that's an LSU fan talking right there. It's biased, and I don't know what he was watching last year because Devin White was not good. In fact, Devin White, I don't even know if Devin White deserved the $11 million he got.
After he done what he did against the Saints, after then he died. To me, he died. Yeah, he died.
It wasn't good.
And and then for one, by all means, give Levante Davis them $7 million for this last year.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm cool with that. Okay, because the young man deserves it. He been playing, moving to the middle. And the other guy put him to the left. Now over there where Shaq was, we gonna miss him over there, but it's time for the next man to stand up.
That's it.
And Shayika, hey man, it's time for you to go to work.
You gotta do something. You gotta do something with him. He's gotta do something for this team, and you're exactly right.
Man.
And Yaya Diaby, I think that's the guy they're definitely gonna depend on. And look, they could still address that need in the draft unless they were going to go with those in-house guys that we talked about, Anna Watts and, of course, Ramirez.
Yeah, and Jason, let's sit down with Mike Evans and Antoine Whitfield Jr. and let's get these guys paid, man. Let's get them paid.
Agree. Completely agree, Mr. Williams, yes.
Because you ain't going, I don't care if $1 million Mars come out the draft, but you ain't going to find another 31.
Right.
You ain't going to find another 31 man. So I say, Jason, like, when you come on, you got to know, you got a lot of fans out here that kind of shaky on why we couldn't hold on to Shite, but it's all good.
Right.
We wish him well. He's gonna be a Buck forever.
Yeah.
But though, let's pay more than let's pay Mike. Mike need that money.
Well, definitely, Mike. I listen. I think they definitely want to get Jason Light and the Brain Trust over there. They want to get Mike Evans done. They want to get Baker Mayfield done. And he talked about it. They've already started negotiations. It's just going to be a process.
But I say, look, number 24, Carlton Davis. I say, see what I can get for him.
No, you may restructure. I think they're happy with what they got there at the corner situation.
But man, I've been in Tampa for 51 years.
Right.
Okay. And the best thing I had out there, to me, I don't know about nobody else, number 20 was a bad man.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
And number 20 Rondé was
Yep.
the baddest thing.
And Antoine Winfield Jr. has that type
Jr.
of career right now. Could be the same type of player.
Yes, and he is closer to Rondé's record also.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
As a young man and getting paid less money than Carlton Davis.
Well, that's going to change in this offseason, Mr. Williams. They're going to definitely take care of Antoine Winfield Jr. either, by giving him a franchise tag and working on a long-term deal or getting a long-term deal done. And that's the way you got to do it. But they have lots of decisions to make. Yes.
Oh, yeah, we do. We got a lot of decisions to make on this coming up because you trying to re-sign these guys, this guy, that guy. Let's evaluate the whole team, man. And Carlton Davis, if you do keep him, tell him to keep his feet together.
Well, he's definitely got to stay healthy. But when he is healthy on the field, he's one of the top corners in the league. He can make plays. Mr. Williams, thanks a lot for the call. Anything else here on the Sports Web, my friend?
Hey, man, Baker Mayfield, I say
4 years, $120 million. That is the projection that was put out there by Sport Track. 4 years, $120 million, including a $53 million guaranteed signing and a 6.25 cap hit in 2024. You don't like that number?
No.
Okay.
3 years, $30 million.
Well, he's not going to get paid. He's not going to get $10 million a year, Mr. Williams. Now, come on. It's going to be 3 years, 75.
3 years, 75, man. But he is kind of accident prone. But if that other guy out there, I say Jason Wright, do not pay for bonus. Go get me another quarterback out here.
So you're in favor of drafting Penix Jr. and you want to sign Baker Mayfield to a $10 million a year. So it's not going to happen, Mr. Williams. I got to tell you, you're going to have to sign him to market value.
But you also got to look at what you're trying to keep. Also, you feel me? In number 13,
Well, number 13 wants number 6 back, so you got to make that happen.
Yeah.
So. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. We got you covered, man, when free agency starts. I believe it's that March 13th there. March 13th there on that
where's
Wednesday.
My friend, man? Where's my friend? He's been hiding.
He's hiding.
He
doesn't want to get you any wings. He decided to take off for the night. He's like, Mr. Williams, I'm not getting you any wings unless you keep on bugging me and tell me you want wings. So we're going to have to work on that, my friend.
Oh, yeah, what's going to happen? I'm going to be sitting at his front door. He's gonna think he just went to the Hall of Fame. I'm gonna be sitting at his front door.
I love it, Mr. Williams. Thanks a lot for the call. Appreciate you, boss.
Yes, sir. Man, you guys are doing good, man.
Thank you.
You guys doing good.
Thank
you. Keep up the good work, man. And I hope Cody Rhodes beat the hell out of Roman Reigns.
Well, that's going to be the match, but Cody also called out The Rock. So use that second call for Turnbuckle Talk. We're going to talk with the madman himself, Mark Mancini, about that very issue, okay?
All right, man. Appreciate it, brother.
I appreciate you, buddy. There you go, Mr. Williams, chiming in as he always does here. Open phone line, 727-255-0391 and 727-255-0391. It's the Sports Web here on a happy
hump day
edition. Missed you guys as always. Like I said, Monday night, a salute to the greatest caller of all time in Sports Web history, Rich from Clearwater. My father, it's his birthday. We'll be talking about him, giving you the latest in Bucks news. I don't know how long we'll go, but we usually go about 2 hours on this show. So we'll give you a Monday, we'll give you a Wednesday night, and if something breaks, we got you covered. All right, let's go out to Sean here. Justin Fields is not the problem. You have to build around him. He will be dangerous. If Atlanta gets Fields, then they will be scary in 2 years, if not sooner, especially with all those weapons. Sean, you mentioned it. I don't think Justin Fields is the problem for the Chicago Bears either. I think you got to build around him. I think you got to develop him. And if he does go to the Atlanta Falcons, you do have Drake London there. You do have Kyle Pitts. You do have a running game there with Bijan Robinson. They definitely will be scary with Fields at the controls. Let's go out to Tulio here. So good comment.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go out to Tulio here. The Bucs defense should focus on improving the pass rush, doing something about Carlton Davis. They keep showing the Houston game on the NFL Network where CJ burned them. Absolutely tough game. Tough game for the Bucs overall because you have a chance to win that game. And even Todd Bowles talked about how this team, by the way, could have been a 10 or 11 win team if you win games like that. So, and definitely that back end, whether it was hurt or it was zone defense, it just wasn't there. And you let CJ Stroud march down and win the game. So it's disappointing. And you got to be better than that. And once again, if your staple is about your defense and shutting down teams, you've got to do that. Now, going back to that survey, overall, the Bucs ranked 22nd in the NFL with locker room happiness. So whatever that means. Todd Bowles said on Good Morning Football, getting Baker Mayfield back is an extremely high priority. Buccaneer GM Jason Licht echoes that also just now telling reporters Mayfield has been great for our team, great for our organization. We love to have him back. I tell you what, let's take a quick break. I'd say about 14 minutes here of Mr. Jason Licht talking to the media there at the Combine on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. We'll come back. We'll dissect those comments. We'll see what we get out of it here on the Sports Web. Enjoy.
You're coming to training camp this year.
Jason, how do you analyze the wide receiver position?
Trey did some outstanding things for us. He's obviously very fast. He's learned multiple positions for us. It's always tough on a rookie, but he put a lot of effort into it and made some big plays for us. And so he's somebody that can take it off the top for us. We need speed. We need more speed like that. And he did a nice job. We're Rock Jarrett too. So we're looking forward to him coming back this year too, in second year off the injury at the end of the year. Needs to take a big step. He missed all of the offseason OTAs, because of the heart deal that he was dealing with. So that's always hard when you miss all that stuff. So he was a little bit behind the eight ball. So he'll be ahead of it this year, hopefully, and because he's got a lot of talent. So a lot of speed, size, all the things you look for in a running back. So we'll see where we're at. We're hopeful. What? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Well, how recent was that?
Like in the last few days.
Okay, there was another one that said we were getting closer. So, yeah, we're working very hard on that on both sides, both ends are, and trust me, we all want Mike.
I know the competition coming this week having that kickoff conversation, and I don't know where that's going to go, but just reflect on how that went this year. Do you have any thoughts? Love it, hate it. What do you think the next generation might be?
I don't know to be honest with you, I don't have a lot of intel on what they're planning on doing or proposing. I'm just looking for good players here. Well, I think he's pretty close to being elite receiving back, and he's made a lot of improvements in running the ball too towards the end of the year. You got to keep in mind he's still young, second year. He's doing a lot of great things. He's one of our better players, and we're excited about him.
Jason, the amount of workload that you shot right in, that concern you all, a lot of touches again.
Yeah, would definitely like to have more depth there, or the use of more depth there, I should say, because I think Chase did some really good things for us too, and we'd like to have Chase back too. But we'd like to have a complimentary back there, whether it's Chase or somebody else, but that could take a little bit of that load.
Jason, was Elijah on the development track you envisioned for him when you selected him in the first round last year, and how did he help
Well, he did a lot. He's super explosive. He's very smart. I think he's ahead of the curve for a rookie. He's going to be even further ahead next year. He's a super competitive guy. Usually your draft class, your whole class kind of takes after the first pick. And Kalijah's the perfect example of what you want the rest of the class to fall in line on, because he's always in the building. He's always trying to improve. He's always asking questions. He and Yaya were, the two best buddies running around all the time, and it's fun to see, and how those two are going to grow together and I think they can both be dominant players.
Jason, how vocal has Neal been in this draft process when you guys look at offensive players and how they best fit your team and his offense?
He's just hit the ground, feet running. He's figuring out how to find the locker room right now. So we haven't gotten into any draft meetings with our new coaches yet. He did. He made some big plays for us. Been a very steady player. He's not sometimes he doesn't appear to be like the flashiest player, but he's very consistent, and he's capable of being an every down player, but he too needs a compliment too. So we're excited about Payne. We'll see what Payne comes along. Well, it's a lot closer than we thought, and that was good to see. That was, it's a sign of a great organization: scouts, coaches, players. So I think when you look back to 2020, we had a lot of depth, and some veteran depth, some young depth, but we had a lot of depth, and I think depth might be the key. So.
How big of a need do you see the interior offensive line being with Aaron Stinney and Matt Filer as free agents? Would that be a position that you look to address?
Absolutely. Always looking to build the trenches, always looking for depth, always looking for upgrades. I think that's something that we'll definitely be looking, not just in the draft, but free agency and, through camp and, whatever avenues we have, we'll always be looking there. Well, as you know, Chris is a very physical player. He's not afraid to work the middle. He's not intimidated, and that's a skill in itself. He's got fantastic hands, very instinctive player. It's just he can play both spots, but he just seems to excel inside. And you saw that at the end of the year, towards the end of the year, started to make more plays for us. So that's, it's hard to find those guys, and Chris is a good one. Well, that's their prerogative to not. We'd like to get as much data as we can, but it's not like they're doing it for one team and not the other. So now it's just comes back to which teams can evaluate the best, and I'll put my team against anybody. So that's where we're stand with that. He's phenomenal person, phenomenal player. A great example to all of his entire team. You almost take him for granted. He's there every day working his ass off, and came back from a brutal injury and came back faster than everybody expected. He's just Mr. Consistency.
Everything's kind of on the table for the run game. Two of the best running games in the NFL right now. Back to the previous Can you talk about that place is as well?
Well, it depends on the scheme that you're going to run. It depends on how you're going to utilize it. These are all conversations that we're going to be having. More conversation. We've already talked a little bit about it. You can use a traditional fullback, or you can find a tight end that has more of a fullback type of skill set and still call him a tight end, but do some of those things. So there's different ways of doing it.
Jason, when you look at the safety position, opposite and junior, what are your options there? Should you not decide to re-sign Ryan Neal? Is Christian Isian, is he a possibility there, or Kevon Merriweather?
He is both of those. With that, Merriweather has a chance to be a good player. Obviously, Isian played well for us last year at nickel, but he's got the safety type twitch and trigger to go tackle. And much like Antoine, you're giving up a little bit of size, but you've got a lot of toughness there. So there's a lot of upside with both of those players at that position. But there's obviously some players in the draft every year that we look at. There's free agency. That's a position we want to make sure that we have some depth.
What are some of the things you learned about Baker Mayfield, Jason, as the season went on that you really weren't aware of when you brought him in?
Well, it did take long for me to realize just what a great dude he was and what a great teammate he was. And as the season went on, more and more, it's how important it was for him to set an example of what we are trying to be as a team, and that's a tough team that endures adversity, but also is physical, tone setter out on the field. And typically, it's not a good recipe to have your quarterback trying to run over linebackers and be the tone setter, but he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. So, and it's a selfless nature of his.
Everybody knows on the team notices that.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, phenomenal. He's a great kid too. He's just a great teammate, and he's always been the same every day too. He's waited for his opportunity, and he took advantage of it. Thrived. Well, it was, the injuries are always frustrating there. I mean, it's not their fault. So, but injuries are always seem to be an issue there at that position. So, in an otherwise very solid year in terms of injuries, I thought Bobby and his staff did a great job this year. So, but that was just the frustrating part because they're both very talented.
When you look at the fact you've had a lot of success moving offensive tackles inside, one of those guys didn't work out for you was Luke Haggerty. He ended up working out at right tackle. We talked about what it meant to have him as your second round pick. Really have a bounce back here, so we can play right back.
Well, yeah, he's another guy that just wills himself to be successful, and him. You guys all know him that cover us. What he's like, if you could take a rock and chip an offensive lineman, that's him. He's, now got a little bit, it's unfair. We moved him to the left side. He was naturally a right-sided player coming out of college, right tackle, moved him to the left guard. And then, I still think could be a very good guard, but now don't take that as we're moving him to guard. But I wouldn't say that he was a bust at guard. He was still learning his way, but he's done a great job.
When we have guys had injuries, do you rely on the film or medical's part of it? But how much does it do?
Well, it's mostly the film. I mean, we'll get the medical and we'll get the assessment from our medical experts, but mostly the film. So he's had a hell of a 2-year career here. So.
Is as good a draft class as it's being pictured and valued this draft class?
Yeah. Well, at certain positions, yeah.
No, quarterback.
Oh, a quarterback? Yeah. I think so. I think the top at the top there. I think it's really good.
Jason, so you told that it's obviously worked with Baker Mayfield in the past. What has those conversations been like? When you guys looking to build this offense?
Like we haven't had a whole lot of time to go through the roster building conversations yet. I mean, that'll happen as soon as we leave here, and he's not going to be in Indy because he's still working with his new staff and installing and all those things. I mean, he wants good players, so it's not going to be that hard. So players over plays. That's what we like to hear in the interview.
Obviously, that's a little bit subject to change because players can be signed before free agency starts. But looking at the expected upcoming free agent class, are there any positions that you feel are a bit deeper?
In the overall free agency class, there always are. But like I said before, like we're focused on signing ours right now. And I mean, if we can re-sign Mike and Baker and Levante and Chase and Antoine and Tristan, I mean, we should be throwing another boat parade. So that's a pretty good class there.
It's always been kind of trying to keep the band
process is that for you, knowing that you have guys like Levante mean so much to fans?
Well, you always want good young players for depth, for the future. And so it's not, I mean, it's not that easy finding them, but I mean, it's not that hard to want to add them to the roster. So you want to, we've got a great blend right now. Just in a few years, we changed it to the oldest roster in the league to now we've got a very young roster with some good, very high end veterans. So want to keep that going.
Okay, we got to cut it off. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that was Jason Light from the Combine. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake. Your thoughts on that whole situation, because there's a lot to take from that. And I think, just writing down some notes, and then we'll get out to turnbuckle talk here. Sean Tucker missed the whole part of the year because of the heart issue. We would like to address the depth. So does that translate into a Ray Davis from Kentucky? Right? Connect the dots, right? Liam Cohen, former offensive coordinator, Ray Davis, hard-nosed back, change of pace back. Is that the guy you take in the later rounds, or do you go with Sean Tucker? White was an elite receiving back, improved, still young. What do you get out of that? Yeah, Yaya and Cansey, as we talked about, building blocks for this team. Excited about that and their future. Interior line could be a need. He's not going to give it away. I mean, yeah, the reporters have to ask the question, but he's not going to give it away. But there's certainly, a situation there at left guard where you could address it, right? Penix Jr., look at the film. Quarterback class, one of the strongest here in the last, 10 to 15 years, especially at the top. Safety position, Merriweather, Etienne played well, and Mayfield, and of course, the big one, re-signing all their guys. We should be throwing a boat parade. So there you go. All right, let's get out to this guy right here, former XPW announcer, the madman himself, XM Sirius Radio, Mancini Media, Mr. Mark Mancini. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television as we talk about WWE and, of course, AEW action. How you doing tonight, my friend?
Well, it's always a pleasure. You're the king of Tampa, baby. You're picking up steam there, and I'm so blessed to be a part of it. Won't be long before we're talking about the Rays, and then we'll be getting back into the Bucks, and we'll find out what the Lightning can do in the playoffs.
Well, that's it, and that's going to be the big thing. The Lightning lately have been struggling, had a 2-game winning streak snap last night, as I believe they lose to the Philadelphia Flyers 6-2. So we'll see how that situation goes. But some sad news to start it off tonight.
Yeah.
Virgil, Michael Jones, has passed away at 61 years old.
Wow.
He moved from WWF by 96, of course, joined the NWO. A lot of people that knew Hogan at that time did that. But WWE later confirmed his death. WWE is saddened to learn that Michael Jones, known to WWE fans as Virgil, has passed away. The company announced WWE extends its condolences to the Jones family, friends, and fans. Of course, he got to start with Memphis-based Championship Wrestling and later won championships in the American Wrestling Association, and then moved to the World Wrestling Federation, known as WWE now. It used to be WWF, being the bodyguard for the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Your memories of Virgil there passing away now in the professional wrestling world.
Wow, I'm only a year older than he is. I think he resided in Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're correct about that, yes.
Yeah, I think he did. And what a great day. He really got the fame when he was the bodyguard for the $1 Million Man.
Right.
And then when that whole thing turned, then you saw the bodyguard go against the $1 Million Man, Virgil. But I like Virgil, man. He was great with that whole being the bodyguard and getting involved in the matches and everything. And man, oh man, it was just so nice back then to see the WWE at its highest platform. And now where they are now, trying to rekindle some of these, memories of yesteryear.
Absolutely. And of course, he was involved with DiBiase and involved in a pivotal moments with the company, had a hand in Andre the Giant beating Hulk Hogan for the World Heavyweight Championship after nearly 5 years. Virgil was also in the corner of DiBiase and Andre in the tag team match versus Hogan and Randy Savage. Of course, he became a fan favorite when he turned on Ted DiBiase there and beat DiBiase at WrestleMania, I believe it was 6, for the $1 million championship. Of course, years later would go on to the NWO. A lot of fans didn't necessarily like him because he would hang out at these, autograph shows. He was still involved with wrestling. They weren't the biggest fan of Virgil. But again, he has passed away. Another guy that you would be familiar with who also passed away, one of the wrestling's 4 horsemen, which started in 1985. Ole Anderson, dead at 81. Ric Flair had this to say: forever thankful to Ole and Gene for bringing me into Crockett Productions as a cousin and launched my career. I will be grateful forever for you giving me the opportunity to become who I am today. We didn't always agree with each other, but the honest to God truth is you and Gene started me. Rest in peace, my friend. Of course, Arn Anderson was one of his tag team partner. Took to Twitter to share a few words about his former tag team partner. Double A shared this: each one of us starts dying the moment we are born. Some of us live long, fruitful lives. Some die too soon. All I have been able to figure out in my 65 years is to treat people how you want to be treated. And if it teaches you anything, be grateful for that. Ole Anderson was brutally honest when it came to how he felt about life and wrestling. He gave me the rub of a lifetime, taking Gene's spot in the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. The 4 horsemen followed. We knew how that went. He was a mentor to me without meaning to be. I studied, will teach my son Oleisms to his family and people that loved him. We agree with you to those who thought Ole was too ornery to die. 81 is a full life. R.I.P. Rock. Arn Anderson had that to say. Your thoughts on Ole Anderson? Of course, being a guy, 1985, 4 Horsemen, one of the original members, was a booker, was involved with wrestling for 20, 30 years. I mean, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about that whole thing, I mean, they're just dying. I mean, he's lived a hell of a life.
Right.
But some of these wrestlers were losing at an early age. And I don't know if it's part of that whole steroid era. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're taking too many shots to the head. Maybe it's concussions. I don't know. But the more and more I'm seeing these guys coming back, and, case in point, look at CM Punk. I mean, he's out for 6 to 8 months, and a lot of people thought that was an injury that was staged. But some of these guys take some hard falls, and all of a sudden they're out for quite a while. So, no WrestleMania for him. But it's sad. It's a business where every day you're knocking yourself out, and I can understand where these guys are tired of the part-time wrestlers, because these guys are doing it, pretty much 7 days a week, whether it's training and being on TV.
You're exactly right. And 81 years old, I mean, that's not an early death, but it just seems crazy that our guys that we watch growing up in this wrestling world that we talk about on Turnbuckle Talk on Wednesday nights at 10:30, that they're gone. Anderson spent most of his wrestling career working for Jim Crockett Promotions. He was a member of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, a fictional family that dominated the tag team division throughout the 70s, 80s, and 85. Ole formed a partnership with Arn Anderson. While the two looked strikingly similar, Ole and Arn Anderson were unrelated. Let's go out to Curtis. Curtis, welcome to Turnbuckle Talk here on the Evolution.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Well, talking about deaths tonight to lead off the show, which is disappointing. Virgil passes away, and then Ole Anderson this week.
Listen, I'm going to say this. I'm not really old enough to remember the Horsemen like that. I do remember the videos. But as far as deaths come, mine, the one I remember the most as a kid was Owen Hart.
Oh yeah.
That's a brutal one.
That was the one for me that I remembered as a kid.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart, bro, because I was the biggest Owen Hart fan, bro. I loved Owen. I know everybody loved Brett.
Sure.
But I kind of grew up as the black sheep, and I loved Owen, bro. And, I always go back to when DX did the spoof of the Nation of Domination, and that guy dressed up as Owen Hart, and he kept saying that he wasn't a nugget like that. For me, oh God, Jesus.
Yes, and it looks like what does my nose look like, an aardvark? Yes, I remember that. I remember it. A very good promo by those guys. Yes.
I was listening to what he was saying, about the part-timers and stuff. And, even I watched wrestling as a kid with my grandmother. And, my grandmother was the biggest Ric Flair, Four Horsemen, Dusty Rhodes person. She loved wrestling, okay?
Sure.
That got me addicted to it. And I used to tell people all the time, yes, they might know who's going to win the matches. They might know who's going to win the titles. They might know. I said, but if you look at the bumps and bruises and the injuries of these guys, these guys take some of the most horrific injuries in the world.
Yep.
Hey, come on. We see how bad. Look how terrible Hulk Hogan's been walking around for years.
Oh, yeah. Multiple surgeries.
That dude can barely walk.
People want to say it's fake, but you have all those surgeries. You take those bumps night after night after night. You're working 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Chair shots.
Yeah.
You can try to plan for a chair shot all you want to. But if you take enough chair shots and something goes wrong, which we know what happens in the wrestling world, look at Owen Hart, tragically.
Dude, I remember old wrestling. They used to bash each other in the head every week with chairs.
Yes.
Every week with chairs.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite things was when the Undertaker used to take the chair and put it under your throat and then hit it down on the ground. Like, man, this is crazy, man. Like, and guess what? Mistakes happen. And these guys, they pay the price for it.
Yep.
I remember watching Jeff Hardy jump off the Titantron one night, and I'm like, come on. There's some of the things I've seen Jeff Hardy do. I'm like, this guy should have been dead.
Oh, yeah.
He should have been dead. And, he went out there and he put it on the line every single night.
Well, it's the reason why there's more safety in it now. There's the reason why you'll never see that hardcore style work, because there is so many concussions and there could be so many lawsuits down the road, and you have wrestlers dying early. Mark mentioned it. Coming in that a lot of our wrestling, legends and heroes are dying young because either of drug use or concussions or stuff like that. So it's a tough life, man.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, you want to go watch wrestling? Go back and watch ECW when Paul Heyman.
Oh yeah,
my God!
Go back and watch how Mankind used to get the brakes beat off of him on a weekly basis.
Yes,
yeah.
I always show people when the Undertaker threw Mankind off the Hell in a Cell the first time ever. How you could? There was no faking that.
Well,
that guy took a hell of a damn fall.
Here's the thing about that match. Did you know what's the other fact of that match?
Oh,
the Undertaker
when his ear got tore off.
Well, not only that, but the Undertaker at the time was wrestling with a broken leg.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
I remember what was it a couple years ago? The Rock tore his quad completely off the bone.
Yep. Well, I think it was Triple H. Triple H did that, didn't he?
Well, and The Rock did. The Rock did it at I think it was WrestleMania a couple years ago against John Cena.
The second time, yes, not the first time.
Yep. And they didn't. And Hollywood didn't want him wrestling anymore.
Yep.
The thing with guys, the thing with Bret Hart, it's unbelievable how. It was a little bit over. The way he hit that to kill himself instantly. If it was just a little bit over to the left to the right, it might have been maybe he would have suffered a broken arm or a broken leg. But the way he hit that thing, I mean, there was just no turning back.
Well, and you look back at it, and now you do more research. If they had more money to invest in that situation when it comes to the cable and the lock and all this other stuff, like they would take the right precautions instead of saving money. And that was on WWE, and that was on Vince McMahon, and that's the reason why you'll never see that video come out. And it's horrific. It's horrific. It happened. Listen, guys?
It happened in Kansas City. I remember it vividly.
It happens at a pay-per-view.
Yep.
They know he's dead, and they don't end the pay-per-view. They continue to wrestle. Let me ask you this, Curtis. At the time, was that the right decision? Should they have ended the pay-per-view? And if something like that, and I hate to say this, but if something like that happened these days, do you think that they would end the pay-per-view right on the spot?
Hold on. We almost had that with DeMar Hamlin, and he's seen what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the question pretty much answers itself. See, we grew up in a time where social media wasn't so big.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they could remove Owen's body, and people would just be asking questions because the internet wasn't that big.
Yeah.
But because the internet is so big nowadays, as soon as it would have happened, it would have been on every social media platform across the world. And because somebody's always waiting with a camera to take a picture and to say what's going on.
Yep.
And that's why I tell people I don't want to get into this debate, but I'm going to leave it at this. This is why these young kids are like, well, LeBron James is the greatest thing I've ever seen. That's because you didn't get a chance to watch Michael Jordan.
Correct.
Yeah.
If social media would have been around when Michael Jordan was playing, there would be no damn LeBron James. You wouldn't even think about that guy.
Exactly.
You really wouldn't.
Exactly.
So, social media has done wonders for the world, but it also has, done things where you'd be like, I mean, just look at the whole DeMar Hamlin situation. It was crazy because even if you didn't see it and you didn't know what was going on, all you had to do was look at social media, and then you would find out everything you needed to know in 2 minutes. I remember I was sitting at home, and this is so off subject. I was sitting at home when Chris Rock got slapped by Will Smith. I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, my phone blew up. I don't watch the Academy Awards ever. I don't care about the Academy Awards.
None of us do. We usually never watch it. Now we watch it. You know why? Because we're looking for that second slap by somebody. Yeah.
But then as soon as you hear, oh, snap, Will Smith just slapped Chris Rock, you're like, yo, let me see what's going on.
Yeah.
So, so like I said, just that Owen Hart thing, if we would have had social media, it would have, I think it would have, they probably would have stopped it because it would have been all over the world instantly.
Well, Jeff Jarrett, here's a story also. This is from Dark Side of the Ring, and I don't know if you've ever seen the story of it. It's horrific, but some of the details that came out, he fell 80 feet.
Yeah.
Even in his time of death, he was telling people, look out, because he didn't want to hurt them. He was dead on impact. Jeff Jarrett sees him, knows he's dead, and still cuts a promo. And you could see Jeff Jarrett when he's cutting the promo, saying, God bless you, Owen Hart. He's basically crying. People knew that he was dead, and they still continue the pay-per-view. Which
you can. I don't think you can ever see that clip. Can you still?
Can't.
No,
you can't.
No. Well, you remember, man, Vince. Here's the thing, and this is the bad part about it.
It's kind of weird how you can't see that clip.
You never will.
It's a business, and I hate to say this. I hate to be the one to say. I mean, I care, but Vince didn't care because he did not want to fall behind WCW.
Well, Vince didn't care. Vince doesn't care anything. He only cares about his business.
He did not want to fall behind WCW.
Right.
Because that's that was literally the beginning of the Monday Night Wars, and if he would have pulled the pay-per-view, I went back and looked at it, a lot of those pay-per-views were right behind each other. You had WCW one week, you had WWE the following week.
Sure.
And he didn't want to fall behind, and that's not an excuse. I mean, you got to think about people's humanity.
Right. The right thing to do is to end the pay-per-view on the spot, not to wrestle.
I mean, even after that happened, I was one of the people who used to flip back and forth from WCW to WWE.
Sure.
Depending on what match was on, depending who was wrestling, I used to flip back and forth.
We all were.
And I still remember every week Sting dropping from the rafters with a cable every week on WCW.
Every week. Every week. And after that, you're thinking about it and you're like, you know, it was such a cool trick. And then Owen, it happens to Owen. And you're like, man, you know, should they really be doing that? And you remember Shawn Michaels did that, you know, at WrestleMania, I think in 96.
Yep.
You know, WrestleMania in 1996, you know, so they did it before, but it was a horrific thing at the time. You'll never see the video. It makes Vince McMahon and WWE look so awful with the continuing the pay-per-view. And they definitely should have. And that's
I'm trying to think of the main event. I was trying to think of the main event that night.
I can't even think. I think it was The Rock versus The Undertaker. I mean,
what year was that?
I don't know what year it was, but I remember it was in Kansas City.
1999, guys.
It was in Kansas City. I remember that.
And here's the thing.
That was the middle of, you know, The Rock and Austin. That's when they were both, you know, The Rock was still coming up. Austin was huge.
Yep.
He was still winning Royal Rumble matches. So, you know, I don't remember, but that was a great time during wrestling. That was some of the.
Well, that was also the Y2J movement.
Yep.
Yeah. Guys, May 23rd, 1999.
Yep. Wow.
And it was over the edge.
And you know what? It you know, for the people who remember it, you will never forget that.
No.
I remember it was a Sunday night too, I think.
It was a Sunday night pay-per-view.
Yeah. Because, and then I remember a couple months later, after the new year started, they started Sunday Night Heat, because I will never forget they had Mankind and The Rock had a match during halftime show at the Super Bowl in an empty arena. I will never.
Well, I want to read this, seeing as we're talking about this, because I didn't think we were going to talk about it, but here's what Vince Russo had to say. Take this for what it is. Vince was involved with the business, being a writer at the time, being responsible for the Attitude Era. The whole idea just started so innocently. We had brought back Owen's old gimmick, the Blue Blazer. Yep. He was meant to be like a superhero, but a spoof on a superhero to really get over the comedic genius of Owen Hart. It was probably the Friday before the show. The show's already written. I get a call from Steve Taylor, WWF's VP of Operations. He goes, look, I just got a call from the people who repelled Sting from the Raptors and rival WCW, and they said they're going to be at our pay-per-view. They want to know if there's anything they may be able to do for WWE. So while he's telling me this, I'm looking through the show, and I see Owen, and I'm saying, well, let's really elevate Owen's character. That'd be something really special and cool for Owen. What if he repelled as the Blue Blazer? So now during the day of the pay-per-view, Owen Hart comes up to me, and what he said was, I rehearsed rappelling from the ceiling, but when I rappelled down, it takes me a while to get my harness off. So there were already
problems.
There were already red flags there. And this is Owen Hart saying this, and the WWE is ignoring it. If Owen's opponent, the Godfather, is in the ring first, and then I rappel and I got to take the harness off, the Godfather could pummel me. See, everyone at the time was thinking real reality. So he said, could my interest come first and then have the Godfather come out? And I said, Owen, no problem. I'll make the changes, no problem. And that was it. That was the extent of our conversation. Earlier that day, my son Shane and I were out by the ring walking through a physical bit. We had to do it that night, and I was shocked and surprised by Owen. He was descending to the ring in typical Owen fashion, yelling and raising hell. He's one of the biggest ribbers, as we call them in the business, a practical joker, a prankster. So there you go. And you read that, and you kind of get pissed off because Hart at the time knew something was wrong. And because WWE, Vince McMahon at the time wanted to save a lot of money, which, you know, by the way, there's all kinds of allegations and stuff about Vince McMahon that when they do a dark side of the ring, it's going to be just damning already. It's already.
Here's the thing, Peter and Curtis. I'm trying to figure out it happened while he was descending down. So this wasn't a practice run. He had
No.
died right when the pay-per-view was in.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did. Here's the thing. Here's the scary thing, guys. And you remember this, and Curtis, we got to run. Great call as always. I want to ask you about The Rock and Cody really quick before you go. But what happened was they did a video package, which is what WWE is great with. They do a video package of Owen, and he's supposed to descend down, but of course he drops 80 feet down into the ring and hits the ring rope, and they come back, and it's weird because Jim Ross minutes later. And you're imagining being an announcer at that point and getting the news that Owen Hart has passed away. And that's Jim Ross. Like they're feeding him that information. He has, a little thing in his ear, and he has to relay this message that Owen Hart is dead. But it actually happened during the video package. So you never see it live. The people at the event see it live, but the viewers never see it live. Thank God, because you have a video package over top of it. So,
and well, that was my point about the whole social media thing, because somebody would have been there snapping pictures, taking videos, and it would have been all over the place.
Yeah,
it literally would have been all over the place.
Well, I think somebody must have been snapping something there, and then they were probably confiscated at the end of the show.
Well, that's one of the videos, and the rumor is that the video is in the vault there in Stamford, Connecticut, and it will never, ever be opened or seen by anybody. I mean,
I think that is honestly one of the times I cried from wrestling.
Yeah.
And then the other one was how terrible Ultimate Warrior looked before he passed.
Well, yeah. I mean, remember that. Remember also, we're talking about deaths in wrestling, and I didn't think we were going to go on there, but you remember, and it's so odd and weird because, of course, the Ultimate Warrior for years, they go back and forth. WWE makes this, this just terrible story CD, about how Ultimate Warrior was not over with the crowd. He was terrible, and he was a joke, and then they finally come together, and he goes into the Hall of Fame. And the night after WrestleMania,
it was a Monday night.
Yes, and he embraces the crowd and says this and says that, and then a couple of days later, he's gone. He's dead. I mean, it's sad. I still remember, Chris Benoit, as crazy as that was.
Man. And you know what?
And I'll tell you what was so scary about that situation. Because the week before, and we're on Turnbuckle Talk here on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with the madman himself, former XPW announcer Mark Mancini. The week before, Vince blows himself up in character. Everybody thought that was a real storyline.
Right.
Vince comes out to start the show and says, this is a tribute to Chris Benoit and his family. He didn't do enough research at the time. So we're all living off emotion, adrenaline. You have wrestlers coming out doing these pieces of Chris Benoit. The very next night, and that's on ECW at the time on Sci-Fi, Vince comes out. It all comes out that Chris Benoit was the one that killed his wife, Nancy, at the time, woman, and also his son. And Vince changes course, and it's just like that kind of stuff. Like you hear that kind of stuff, and it's just, Brian Pillman. 97. There's another. So we talk about
Eddie,
these.
Eddie Guerrero.
Eddie Guerrero was another one.
Which,
oh my God,
listen,
man!
If you watch Dark Side of the Ring, which, by the way, if you're not watching it, we got to get those guys on because they do a hell of a job on Vice, just telling a story and painting it up like a Picasso. That destroyed Chris Benoit. That was the downfall for Chris Benoit. Say whatever you want to. Did he have mental problems? Yes.
And here's the thing. People love the Benoit.
Yes.
People do when they smile with the teeth missing and all that. Man, people love the Benoit.
Yes.
They did.
Yes. And they come to find out that he had the brain of an 85-year-old man because why? He was doing those bumps every night. He was taking those chair shots. He was jumping off the top rope with headbutting people. That I don't care how fake that is to you. That's going to take a toll eventually. On him, but not only the Eddie Guerrero death, but that.
Dude, How many times have they changed the helmets in the NFL?
I mean, they're going to continue to change the helmets, and people are going to come out and say they should go helmetless and go with flag football, and that just will ruin the game. The game will no longer exist.
And you know what? And I hate to say this, and I know this is going off subject. That is why it disappoints me that these guys don't get guaranteed contracts.
Well, here's the problem. I think when you look at, you bring up an interesting point. You both do. You know, if you got these companies that aren't going to look out after the people that are making the company money, and these guys are dying left and right with the concussion thing, you know, the NFL is how different is the NFL than the WWE to some extent?
Yep.
I mean, they're definitely, you know, together.
I mean, you got all this money. You're making all this money. These every team in the NFL is making what, 40 million, maybe more on TV deals.
Oh, so much.
You
more.
can't invest some of that money in the helmets.
That 40 million is a drop in the bucket, sir.
Well, maybe it's 80 million. If it's 80 million, each one of these clubs are getting. You can't tell me you can't put money aside for helmets for 45 guys or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? And I hate to touch on this too. I remember Antonio Brown filed a lawsuit against the NFL because he wanted to wear certain helmets to better protect his head. And he had a lawsuit against the NFL about it.
Well, I thought that was just him wanting to wear his own helmet. I don't think that was trying to protect him, but the NFL was actually trying to protect him because of the helmet.
No.
That's what I was under the impression.
But the problem is going to go if they don't correct the problem.
Yep.
Soccer mom is going to put an end to it.
Wow.
And you're gonna see more and more of these kids playing flag football. You already see it in the Pro Bowl.
You see it in the Pro Bowl.
Well, and it, like you said, it goes back to the WWE. We don't even know how many of these people retired because of injuries. You know, you get the big guys that, you know, when Edge broke his neck.
Yep.
You know, we never thought we'd see Edge. We saw Big E break his neck. We haven't seen him since.
Well, did you ever see heavyweight boxing and horse racing go off a cliff? Those two sports went off a cliff. I mean,
I think it comes down to this, guys. That's the reason why the NFL put all these rules into effect, so you don't have, you know, these lawsuits coming down the pike and you're suing, and then eventually you're going to that point of where you're helmetless and you're taking the physicality out of the game. Going back to wrestling, you look at the state of some of these wrestlers these days. I mean, they're not in good shape, and the reason why is because of all the wear and tear, whether it's fake or not. Concussions take a toll, and we've seen it.
First of all, going riding up and down. We've all taken road trips.
Yes.
Taking a 4-hour road trip. Get out the car after a 4-hour road trip.
Yeah.
And your body is like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you're like, oh my God. And then these guys take so many road trips a year. Then they get in the ring and they beat up their body on a weekly basis. I mean, what do you expect?
Well, I mean, football. I'll give you football, and you know, when you look at all these, but to me, I think the most grueling sport out of all of them has to be baseball. They're playing 200 games a year. That includes spring training. They're in, you know, 3 different cities in a sometimes 4 cities in a 2-week break. Come home, maybe play 6 games, back on the road. I mean, you talk about a grueling thing. That's got to be right up there with the WWE traveling, wouldn't you say, boys?
Well, I don't think it's as physical as a wrestling.
Not as physical, but you're not getting sleep. You're buckling
up.
up.
No. I see what he's saying. I know what he's saying.
Yeah.
I know what he's saying. Well, that's like, to me, playing offense or defensive line in the NFL. Think about what you put your body through.
Well, I mean, that's why the life expectancy is so small.
Those guys, when you see people like what was that guy? Jason Peters play 20 years at offensive lineman.
Yes.
You can only imagine the bumps and bruises and nicks and cuts and all the injuries he's been doing 20 years playing on the offensive line. Because guess what? People don't care about the offensive line or the defensive line because, you know, but that's where most of the games are won at.
Well, that's it. I mean, and those are car collisions over and over again. So eventually that's going to take their toll. You remember Reggie White? He died of sleep apnea, 42, 43 years old. I mean, there's plenty of NFL athletes. And I look at Terry Funk. I don't know if you ever saw Beyond the Mat.
Oh, yeah, I worked with Terry in the XPW.
Well, there you go. You can talk about Terry Funk and see how it's tough for him to get out of bed in the morning, how he has back problems.
Dude, I was a huge Sabu fan, and that
Sabu,
guy,
another one in that XPW.
oh my God.
Yep.
That guy, Jesus, he used to be everywhere.
Everywhere.
I'm like, this guy's gonna kill
Japan and everywhere, yeah.
I want to go. Curtis, thanks a lot for the call, man. Appreciate it.
Oh,
You
yeah,
said take
absolutely,
a call
guys.
if you want to.
I love you.
We'll talk, all right?
Yeah.
All right, good stuff there, Curtis. Mark, I want to go out to this. You said you worked with Terry Funk. Give me some memories. Give me some stories about the Funker.
Funk was one of the best, got to know him a little. Just, a down-to-earth guy. You can have a beer after the show with him. I drank the non-alcoholic, so I didn't have to worry about that. But just a real down-to-earth guy. When you hang around with legends like, you brought up Terry Funk and you bring up a Sabu and the Sandman, you just sit back and you have one word in the equation is listen and absorb it like a sponge. And those kind of guys, you can learn a lot if you're a wrestling guy. I learned a lot as a ring announcer for the XPW with these guys, just talking to these guys and picking their brains and traveling and all that. Man, oh man, it's just memories you could put in a book.
I tell you right now, that's a great stuff there. All right, let's go out to Sean. We all want MK13, absolutely. Jin Ping says, I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. Very good there.
Randy Orton.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, let's go out to Harold. He wanted to wear his own helmet. That didn't meet the new NFL standards. That's what I thought too, Harold. And Christopher Cole, Owen Hart was afraid of heights too. All right, let's go because a lot of memories out there. Is there one particular wrestling death that hit you that made you cry like Curtis?
I think it was when Rick Rude passed.
Wow. That's another one.
Yeah,
I kind of know the inside story on that. I mean, it was a drug overdose, but I have to tell you off air. But I kind of know it from a guy.
Yeah. I remember, yeah. I'd love to hear that one from you.
Yes,
but man,
yes.
oh man.
But Rick Rude, was 39 years old. I mean, he hurt himself. He was getting back into wrestling. He was
St.
in
Cloud, Minnesota, I think he was from.
Everybody was from Minnesota. You had Kurt Hennig.
Kurt Hennig.
Who died of a drug overdose, who was also from Minnesota. I mean, the guy Hawk, I believe,
Hawk
was from Minnesota. Those guys. So Minnesota was a power plant. So you talk about Ole Anderson being a part of Minnesota Wrecking Crew. Minnesota was that that place that was the place.
Yeah, I just think the with some of these wrestlers, they just think their body's invincible.
Right.
And the character Rick Rude was one of the best. I mean, coming out with the whole outfit or whatever, and going after Jake the Snake's wife, Cheryl, I think her name was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then to see him die at an early age.
Right.
Rick Rude was the one that hit me hard because I've always liked Rick Rude. That was one, and the other one is more or less the guy out of Miami. I got a brain fart now. Razor Ramon.
Yeah, Scott Hall passed away a couple of years ago. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Scott Hall is gone. You got Kevin Nash but Scott Hall was way too young, man. Way too young. But and it's sad because Hall had to fight those demons for so many years when it came to drug use and drinking, and then finally getting his life back on track with DDP yoga and getting back into the business a little bit because he's a forefather of the NWO. That was one of the biggest storylines of all time, one of the greatest factions, if not the greatest faction besides the Four Horsemen that has ever lived, and it's sad to see him go. All right, let's get off of that. Let's go to the Elimination Chamber. First and foremost, your overall thoughts of the Elimination Chamber from Perth, Australia on early Saturday morning at 5 a.m. Did you get up?
It was 2 a.m. for me out here.
Wow. 2 a.m. Did you get up and
2
watch
a.m. in Pacific time zone, 5 a.m. for you guys.
Yeah.
But I figured if I was going to bet my last dollar, because you can see this thing playing out if you watch wrestling enough, Drew McIntyre was going to come out of that to set up the whole Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins. I hate to say it, but I think Drew McIntyre is going to take it from Seth Rollins. And then in 6 months, we'll see CM Punk take it from Drew McIntyre, because now, to borrow my buddy's coined phrase out of Pittsburgh, Bubba Brewer said, he could be a champion now with fans now. Before, when he was a champion, there was nobody in the stands. It was the pandemics.
Well, that's exactly right. And I go back to the pandemic. People were like, well, what if wrestling, what if Vince McMahon cancels wrestling? Guys, he didn't cancel when somebody died on a pay-per-view. You really think this guy is going to cancel during a pandemic? But you're exactly right. With McIntyre, he carried the company at the time and had no fans around. It's such a shame, because he waited for so many years, went to TNA, was out of wrestling. I mean, just an amazing comeback story. And he's definitely, he's having some of his best work right now, some of the promos he did. So a lot of people thought, you know what, they don't have a contract extension with them. I think they have a contract done, because why are you booking, Mark, Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk down the road if you don't have a contract extension? And by the way, they're not going to make that mistake, because if Drew McIntyre leaves WWE, goes to AEW, he's automatically over. He's automatically the face of that company, period. Your thoughts?
Yeah, not only that, now you can have Seth Rollins take time off, get his back worked on, get some things. It's a perfect segue into the CM Punk coming back and pulling the belt from Drew McIntyre. I think the other thing was with all those guys is, when you see it, is I think Logan Paul's time is coming where, he's going to lose his strap here, and it could be at WrestleMania. So that could be an interesting one.
Yeah, looks like it's going to be Randy Orton with that. So a lot of
I think that's where that's going too, with Randy Orton on that one. So Randy Orton,
it's the way you got to go with it, because Logan Paul is an upcoming superstar. Even Triple H said, some months back, he's too good for his own good, and he doesn't have necessarily the experience. So how do you put him over more? You put in one of the best workers out there, most likely a Hall of Famer and a Randy Orton, the Legend Killer. You put him in a match together. You put the belt on Randy Orton. Eventually, you create a rivalry, which you'll get people interested. Not only that, Cody Rhodes calls out The Rock, says, I want you anywhere, anytime. Do we think that's going to happen at WrestleMania? Are they going to have Cody go twice? He's going to go against Roman and go against The Rock. I mean, how are they going to work that scenario? By the way, I want to mention this. The Rock is going to be on SmackDown. There's talk that Cody Rhodes could go there and they could meet face to face. Your thoughts on Cody versus The Rock?
I think something smells in this thing, because if you picked it up in the beginning, when we didn't know what The Rock was going to do, and he aligned himself with Cody Rhodes and he whispered in his ear when he was in the ring, I think The Rock is going to turn on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I really do. Because
I think you're completely right, and people kind of picked that up because he was not pointing to the sky. He was doing this, and he pointed to Roman Reigns. So people kind of trying to take some of that stuff and say he's foreshadowing to that fact that it doesn't make sense for The Rock to turn heel and be Hollywood and all this other stuff with the bloodline and not turn on Roman Reigns eventually. And as I said on this show many times, Mr. Mark Mancini, that match will happen next year at WrestleMania, not this year. So the talk is that, of course, Rhodes was...
I think Rhodes and McIntyre finished their story at WrestleMania.
Well, I think you're exactly right, especially Rhodes finishing against Roman Reigns, and then McIntyre winning the belt sets up CM Punk with him, calling out CM Punk the other night and talking about injury and all this other. I mean, it's just it's great for wrestling right now. And McIntyre,
we're getting all set up now for WrestleMania. The Usos will be going against each other. We can see that one. The interesting wild card in this whole situation is, where does Damian Priest fit in it with that briefcase?
That is very interesting. All right. A guy that used to be in WWE for a while that was highly talented, that would be the former tag team partner, Mr. Matt Riddle. He is opening
He won a belt. Yeah.
He's opening up about his failed drug test. The former United States and Raw Tag Team Champion said during the appearance on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani on Wednesday that he was let go by the company in September because of multiple failed drug tests. He said he was also fined for them, and WWE kept his wellness policy violations. Hush, hush. Now get this. You're allowed to smoke weed, said Riddle, whose on-screen character was allowed to reference marijuana use. I went to the strip club and did cocaine a couple times. I failed a drug test for that. That was for all of them. It was cocaine each time. It was just a random night. WWE tests you randomly any week. Sometimes you get tested at the end of one month and the beginning of another month. After failing drug tests on consecutive weeks, Riddle said he told WWE to test him for the next 10 weeks, and he passed all of them, but slipped up shortly after. When I thought I was in the clear and went out and partied a little bit, they gave me a random test at my house. I failed that. Shortly after that, they had me go to rehab, who will be wrestling in MLW's Intimidation Game show at Melrose Ballroom on Thursday. The former UFC fighter and current New Japan Pro Wrestling Television champion said he agreed to do 30 days of rehab, missed the holidays in 2022, but WWE wanted him to do 30 more days consecutively, which he pushed back on. Your thoughts on this? Because this is a shame. This man is highly talented, but you knew something was not right because, he wasn't on television. He was highly talented. He's hanging out with porn stars. Nothing against porn stars, but when you're hanging out with them, there's bound to be bad stuff that's going to happen.
Happening.
And you're talking about cocaine multiple times. I mean, why do this? You ruin your wrestling career. Is it worth it? You have a problem. You should have went to rehab. You couldn't get it under control, and now you're wrestling in MLW.
Well, not only that, you should have enough sense to realize, I was in the business. I didn't get involved in drugs and all that stuff. I had enough sense to realize, hey, listen, I don't need that. Now, a good-looking woman at the time walking around, that'd be a different story, but it still wasn't going to be drugs, alcohol, or gambling. But I think this guy had a problem right from the get-go, Peter. When he first came into WWE, the allegations of a rape or something that we heard once he came into the WWE, and that kind of was like a dark cloud over him. I can remember Randy Orton at one time having that, but Randy Orton, it kind of went by the wayside. Riddle, I always remembered it was one allegation after another with him with women. And I don't know if it was assaults. I don't know what it was.
I want to clarify this now.
Because I remember. I think you remember it as well. When he first came into WWE, it was some woman was, basically saying she was raped by him or something, if I'm not mistaken. And you can quote me on that.
Here's the thing. He says after WrestleMania 39, I got out. I was just waiting. This was a month before WrestleMania. We don't have anything for you. Maybe Raw after Mania. I thought they were going to fire me. Well, months later, in September of 2023, Riddle was involved in an incident at JFK Airport, after which he accused the Port Authority officer of sexually assaulting him. He said he did not press charges after talking to the FBI and Internal Affairs. In a video captured at the terminal, Riddle appeared to be intoxicated during a flight delay and jumped on the microphone to joke about it for all to hear. He was coming off a quick trip to India for WWE's Superstar Spectacle and developed an ear infection and had a couple of cocktails on top of that. I grabbed the mic. I'm talking some crap. Flights were delayed. It was just a perfect storm. At the same time, I look at it. I think it was a sign I was overworking myself. Maybe I hopped back into things a little too quick, doing like a 4-day tour, going into India for a day and back. It took its toll on me, and I think those things kind of took a toll on me. Riddle claimed he learned a lesson, believed it was a collection of things and other factors that ended up getting him fired, including WWE's merger with UFC after being bought out by Endeavor. As entertaining as he was, along with his skills in the ring, he believes he wasn't a good fit for WWE at the time. Or it's not a good fit to fail multiple drug tests when it comes to cocaine.
Yeah. No doubt about that.
He has this to say: it was written in my contract that I was going to make millions of dollars this upcoming year guaranteed, which is a lot more than I was making last year, and a lot more than I was making the year before that. So I think there were multiple variables that played into my departure. Plus, I failed a couple of drug Plus, I failed a couple of drug tests. You know, the writing for me, at least, the writing was on the wall. I mean,
so basically what I'm learning from this whole thing is, and I don't want to take any, food off anybody's table, but I know he won the title in Japan now, moving on.
right.
But it kind of reminds me of even in the NFL to a certain extent. You get an Odell Beckham that just jumps from team to team, and somebody thinks they're going to be the ones that's going to change him, but nobody ever addresses the current problem.
Right.
And here's the problem with Riddle, cocaine and preparing for your opponent just don't mix.
No.
You
And
know?
it doesn't mix at all. Failing a couple of drug tests is the least of your problems, man. I want to ask you this because I asked you this before. If he can get his stuff together, do you think he'll ever make it back into WWE? Do you never say never, or is it a situation where he burned so many bridges and you're never going to see him back in that company? In your opinion?
Well, I think consistency makes people believe. If you stay humble, if people see that you've turned the corner, you're not going to get the opportunity right away. But time heals everything, and I think that's the thing. And what I always try to tell people is, you can burn a bridge, you just don't want to blow it up, because if you blow a bridge up, it's kind of hard to ever get back over. So it's going to be one of those things where he's going to have to be contrite and basically become humble to a certain extent. And it's not going to come right away, because people are going to, test you, and you're going to have to jump through hula hoops and stuff like that. And then maybe you'll get an opportunity. But I think America's built on second, third chances. What you say?
No, absolutely. I agree with you on that. Speaking of some chances being given,
wow.
CM Punk is now going to be in WWE 2K24. Of course, you wouldn't have said this, 5-10 years ago, especially with him being in AEW. The first pack, which launches on May 15th, is the ECW Punk pack, which will include CM Punk, the Dudley Boys, Sandman, and Terry Funk. Jade Cargill is included in the Global Superstars pack that releases on September 20th. It wasn't clear if Punk, who returned to WWE at Survivor Series in November, made it back in time for 2K to include him as a playable character at launch. That was confirmed last week when the full roster was announced. Punk posted a video on his Instagram with a confused dog that was captioned, "When you're looking at the roster for WWE 2K and don't see CM Punk." Even though it's taken some additional time for 2K to build an avatar for the best in the world, he will be included in a WWE video game for the first time since WWE 2K15 was released in 2014. You ever play any of these wrestling games by chance?
Yeah.
Which ones? What's your favorite?
Years ago, with the old wrestlers in it, I can't think which one that was, but that was always a
2K.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember this being on N64 at the time, which is Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
You had NWO versus the World, WCW versus the World. That was one. There are so many good ones, but
I could definitely go back to the robots. Remember the Rock'em Sock'em robots?
Oh yeah, and you got your SmackDown, Shut Your Mouth with Brock Lesnar on the storylines and everything. There are so many good wrestling games, but this 2K24 is looking really, really good. I may have to play that. Mark, thanks a lot for your time.
Always a pleasure, brother. Man, I can't wait to get that Bubba coming in here, man. He's a great guy too.
Yeah, let's get some more wrestling guests here. Maybe Bubba Brewer. Let's get some guys that are involved with the wrestling business.
Yeah,
Mark,
he's a good man. He's like you, man. I'm just so blessed. I think of Tampa. I tell everybody about it, and you're right up there with the Buccaneers, the Lightning, and the Rays.
I appreciate that, my friend. I really do appreciate your time here on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television. All right.
I can't wait to see you next Wednesday, brother. Have a blessed one. Reach
Will
out
do.
anytime.
Absolutely. There you go. The madman himself, former XPW announcer Mark Mancini, right there on Turnbuckle Talk. Thanks a lot to all the guests tonight. Mr. Leo Haggerty, the legend himself, former Coach Scout and now media member of Night Sports Productions, Amped Up Sports. Ryan Neal, the newest member there of Amped Up Sports, a draft guy, if you will. He's going to be on this show in the coming weeks because the draft is coming up. Of course, you got free agency in the draft. So we'll call him a draft analyst for Amped Up Sports. And, of course, the madman himself, Mr. Mark Mancini. Thanks a lot to all the calls and your support. As I always say on this show, you guys are the lifeblood of what the sports web is all about. Share, like, and follow. The sports web on YouTube. Like and subscribe there. Friend me at Peter H. Blake on Facebook. And do 3 things for me on this happy
Hump Day
edition of the evolution of sports talk television. Bring your passion. Bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake, your Rolex reporter. What time is it? It's my time. And for fans of the sports web and the Tampa Bay sports fan, especially you guys out there who once again are the lifeblood of this, we'll be back on Monday night for the salutes to the greatest caller in sports web history, my father, Rich from Clearwater. Guys, have a great night, and we'll see you soon here on the sports web.